Chapter 151. The enemy started off leniently. Yang Chen, flying ahead, changed his speed many times, but no matter if he flew fast or slow, the people behind him certainly hadn't intended to attack him near the Devil Flame Valley. After discovering this, Yang Chen also began to move leisurely. Naturally, nobody had discovered the small snake which had just then left Yang Chen's body and entered the mountain woods. Departing next was a small scorpion who also silently left and entered the thick jungle. Soon after that, when he was approximately 200 miles away from the Devil Flame Valley, Yang Chen sensed that the people chasing him suddenly accelerated their speed. When the group of 16 people appeared in front of Yang Chen, they were stunned to discover that Yang Chen was calmly sitting on a piece of a rock, while behind him, a woman covered in a veil, was eagerly massaging his back and glanced at them from the corner of her eyes, without even raising her head. The 16 people immediately stopped their flying swords and seemed to be in a mess, but they immediately disseminated in different directions, forming a half-moon shape in Yang Chen's surroundings. The problem was the woman, whose cultivation should be around the mid-Jidan stage, who did not match the information they had been provided. But they had 16 people on their side, with the worst being at the later Jidan stage, so there shouldn't be any problems. Their group had handled a lot of matters like this. Initially, it was decided that only 2 of them would set out to kill the initial foundation stage youngster, but for insurance, the young master had still sent everyone. Although there seemed to be no problems, Yang Chen's confident attitude baffled them. 16 people had surrounded him, but he was still sitting at the same place without any worries. That Scarface hasn't come. The first one to speak was the one who was still sitting calmly, Yang Chen. With just a glance, he could determine that the Scarface that Spider Woman had talked about was not there. Thus Yang Chen was not completely sure that these people were from the Haoyi Manor and tried to confirm by pretending he knew Scarface. HMPH, for dealing with a youngster like you, there was no need for Senior Scarface to come. Perhaps here they were strong enough to proclaim themselves as tyrants, or perhaps it was their usual habit to dictate. The person in the lead didn't intend to hide anything and generously admitted to it. Good, you all admitted, that's good. Hearing what they said, Yang Chen sneered and asked. Since everyone was chasing after me, what do you want, speak out. Sire is indeed quick with words, then we will also not beat around the bush. The person in the lead hadn't met a calm-headed youngster like Yang Chen and was also somewhat nervous, but thinking that their side held the absolute advantage, he was not very worried that Yang Chen would play any tricks. Hand over all of your belongings and tell us the use of the last 2 items you purchased and maybe you will get yourself a chance to survive. The person who was in the lead knew that these words were just nonsense. How could they allow Yang Chen to depart alive? But if they did not convince him, although robbing spirit stones was easy, getting the details of the 2 things he purchased at the auction would be troublesome. So first they had to boast loudly and pretend to be good people. If this didn't work, they could always capture him and extort the confession using some other methods. Sure enough, the auction house is also an accomplice. These words of Yang Chen were as if he had confirmed many things and was no longer interested in talking with these people. Once his words came out, the leader apparently sensed something strange about the atmosphere, but no one knew from the problem was. When he turned around to observe his surroundings, the people behind him indicated that there was nobody hiding near them for an ambush. But Yang Chen was sitting calmly, as if he had certain guarantees, which had worried the leader the entire time. Shua. Suddenly, inside of the small area, 4 women exactly the same as the one who was behind Yang Chen's body appeared. The woman standing behind Yang Chen also stopped, as 5 flying swords began to coil around in their surroundings. Attack. The appearance of the 4 women caught the leader with surprise. Without continuing to scout for information, he directly ordered the attack. Everyone was on their guard, but hearing the leader's command to attack, several among the 16 people immediately rushed towards the women from the surroundings. In their minds, 16 against 5, or rather 16 late and peak Jidan stage expert against 5 mid-Jidan stage cultivators, the outcome of such a battle was obvious. But once they attacked, they immediately discovered that it was not as easy as it seemed. Each of the 5 women held their respective position, as well as advanced and retreated using the same method. Clearly this was a very high-level spell formation. Against the 16 people, not only were the 5 women not giving them an advantage, instead they were fighting on equal terms with the 16 people surrounding them. But Yang Chen was still sitting on a mountain rock as before, coldly looking at the ongoing battle without saying anything. This group of people wanted to attack him just moments ago, but now they couldn't even leave. Nobody had discovered that, at some unknown time, this area had been surrounded by a layer of blood-colored vines. While everyone was busy in the battle, an indifferent and abundant red mist silently spread everywhere. Within the battle, the people quickly discovered that their spirit power had already stopped listening to their orders. Seeing this, they were greatly frightened and wanted to flee, but it was already too late. The red-colored vine which had spread over the area wrapped around the surroundings of everyone, including the 5 women. The vine had already coiled around everyone, successfully forming a closed network. It was just as if the vine had a mind of its own and it avoided the bodies of the 5 women. As soon as it came in contact with them, it immediately left. But the other people were not so lucky. After the blood-colored vine had wrapped around them, it began to frantically take root. The violent pain which passed through the bodies of the 16 people made them shriek miserably. But the 5 women were as if they hadn't seen anything and were still on guard, surrounding the group of people who were already wrapped up in the blood phantom vine. The 16 people were arranged in a row by the blood phantom vine. Because it had been absorbing their blood, they had already become powerless and lightly collapsed in front of Yang Chen. Yang Chen kept his stare fixed on them, as if watching some dregs without any life. I really want to know something. 2 months ago, did that man with the scar and your young master launch a sneak attack on a woman who had bought Red Sun Metal Soul? Once he opened his mouth, Yang Chen went straight to the point without beating around the bush. Since we have already fallen in your hands, if you want to kill us, then listen clearly. The man seemingly strong-willed shouted loudly. Don't even think that we would sell our young master out. As you wish. Yang Chen lightly snapped his fingers and that person who was raining abuses was immediately thrown in front by the blood phantom vine and under everyone's eyes, he turned into a dried corpse following a blood-curdling scream. The group of people turned pale, but nobody opened their mouths. That young master did indeed have some ability. Even in the face of death, these people still weren't giving the information Yang Chen wanted. It seems that I have come too late for the party. While Yang Chen was interrogating them one by one, a loud voice echoed in everyone's ears. Hearing the loud voice, the people lying on the ground were exalted. Yang Chen's gaze turned towards the direction of the voice. On that side, within the mountain woods, all plants began to separate, as if they were being pushed aside by a formless hand. With that appeared the figure of a strong person who was slowly walking there, as if taking a stroll in their garden. Humph. Useless people. Looking at the group of people lying on the ground tangled in blood phantom vine, he snorted. If it were not for young master's cautiousness, your mistake today would have caused a great loss to the young master. Even when they were tangled in blood phantom vine and facing the threat of death, these Zhanxian stage experts only issued painful screams but never revealed fear on their face. But the appearance of this person made dread appear on their faces. Yang Chen was coldly watching this valiant man, his gaze was fixed on that long scar, starting from the left corner of his eye and extending to the right corner of his mouth. Seeing him walking towards him step by step, Yang Chen furiously asked. Scarface. Youngster, I hear you were looking for me. Scarface didn't admit to his identity, the scar on his face already was enough. If you want to know anything, I will tell you before your death. These people are useless now. His gaze fixed on the figure of the person with scar and with one thought, the blood phantom vine began to crazily absorb the more than 10 people it was coiled around. Senior Scarface, save us. Save me. Mournful screams with cries for help echoed, but Scarface kept on coldly watching the blood phantom vine wreaking havoc on everyone without the slightest intention to help them and just coldly snorted. Since you have failed young master's affair, you must die. If you don't kill them, I will kill them. You attack while holding back, but I'm busy. Saying this to Yang Chen, Scarface placed his hand on the dried corpse of one of his companions who had been sucked dry by the blood phantom vine, remaining indifferent. When the blood-colored vine suddenly wrapped up around Scarface, he didn't make any movements, but an armor of flame suddenly appeared on his body. Once the vine touched it, it immediately shrunk back as if running into its nemesis. No matter what was said, it was still related to the second wood attribute. Running into fire which could subdue the entire wood attribute, it had to cower. The good treasure. Yang Chen praised. This flame armor was definitely a good treasure. The flames could be seen on top of the armor, this was a mixed magic armor formed by Nanming flame. Not only could it be used for defense, but the armor also had the Nanming flame which could be used to attack the enemy. This was indeed a good magic tool. It had both attack and defense. Thus this magic tool alone was far more powerful than everyone's flying swords added together. Even if Yang Chen was included, the magic weapon on him still could not be ranked at the same level as the Nanming flame armor. Its grade still hadn't been upgraded and it was unable to act as both an attack and defense magic weapon. Not to mention other things, even the Nanming flame integrated with the armor was a flame which could be compared to the real sun fire. And the one holding this kind of weapon, Scarface, was certainly not a person with a cultivation at the peak Zhanxian stage, as he had heard from the spider woman, Yang Chen judged. The wielding stage. Yang Chen's gaze turned chilly. This was the first time after coming to the greater mountains that Yang Chen had run into a wielding stage expert. This person was surprisingly successful in spreading his reputation as a peak Zhanxian stage expert, indeed very cunning. Concealing one's cultivation was not very difficult, but Scarface had already revealed the Nanming armor, so it could be assumed that he didn't plan on letting Yang Chen walk away alive. What astonished Yang Chen was that the Spider Woman had told him that she had personally seen Scarface strike Gao Yu, but with his cultivation, it was impossible for his master to run away from him, so how was this the same thing? With your strength of the foundation stage, your eyesight is pretty good. The Scarface still hadn't attacked and was still fixedly looking at him, he even praised Yang Chen a little, which made Yang Chen not know what his intentions were. 2 months ago, did you attack a woman who had bought Red Sun Metal Soul? Regardless of anything, Yang Chen first had to confirm who attacked Gao Yu. Not to mention that Scarface was a Yuning stage expert, even if he was a Dacheng stage expert, as long as Yang Chen had confirmed this, together with his destined magic weapon, he would stake his all to get justice for his master. Your Yang Palace's young lass has what kind of relation with you? Scarface raised his eyebrows as if he hadn't expected Yang Chen to ask this kind of question. But he didn't deny, nor try to conceal it, instead he admitted it with great confidence. He even made it clear that he knew Gao Yu was a disciple of the pure Yang Palace. Myself as Yang Chen, the woman you tried to hunt was my master. Before coming to the Greater Mountains, he had already hid all things which could prove his identity. In addition to that, he cultivated the 5 phases of yin and yang secrets, so other people basically could not discern his sect from his cultivation. Since the enemy himself had admitted it, Yang Chen also did not hide. But at this moment, Yang Chen didn't have the kind of hate which was carved in his bones and engraved in his heart, on the contrary, it had been replaced by gratitude. But the cultivation that Scarface had revealed right now, not to mention Gao Yu's cultivation at the initial Jidan stage, even if she had a cultivation at the peak Jidan stage with some life-saving treasure in her hand, she still wouldn't be able to flee from Scarface if Scarface had truly wanted to kill her. Gao Yu wouldn't have been able to leave alive, that meant the other party had been lenient. Thinking of this, cold sweat covered Yang Chen's forehead. If Gao Yu had run into someone who was not Scarface or if he hadn't been lenient, then wouldn't Gao Yu have died to refine his flying sword? This was completely unacceptable for Yang Chen. Attacking the strong but the weak comes for revenge. After learning the fact that Yang Chen only had the strength of the initial foundation stage, he was even more astonished. But it seems you are more difficult to deal with than your master, even your master was no match for this many people. I am indebted to you for being lenient with my master, my gratefulness can't be explained in words. But Yang Chen cupped his hands with a serious expression and said that to Scarface. You flatter me, when seizing something, if one does not have kill people, then it should be avoided, there is no need to especially thank me. Scarface only waved his hand, without taking it seriously. You are the same, today I am very happy that you have dealt with this garbage in my place. As long as you tell me, the 2 things you have won the auction are, what their use is and hand them and your spirit stones over to me, I will spare your life. You have injured my master, so we cannot live together under the same sky, if you want these things, then you must deal with me first. Yang Chen hadn't changed his intentions in the slightest, with a thought, the 5 women immediately surrounded Scarface. Their 5 flying swords began to move around and started to attack. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 152 Gathering of Yuning Experts. Sword Spell. With just one glance, Scarface could see that these 5 women were working in cooperation with each other. Clearly this was a high-grade spell formation. Those henchmen falling before this was really not a shame. However, Scarface didn't put them in his eyes. A few Jidan experts would never be able to suppress a Yuning stage expert, Scarface firmly believed this. Confronting those 5 women, Scarface didn't even pull out his flying sword, but instead formed a fist and had unleashed the Nanming armor for defense, which made the 5 women shiver. It had to be said that the might of the spell formation of these 5 women was really unusual, even if they were only at the mid-Jidan stage, through cooperation they were able to contend with more than 10 peak Jidan stage experts. But when confronted with a fierce person like Scarface, this sword spell was looking a bit inferior. Under the continuous barrage of Scarface's fierce punches, the circle of the 5 women was growing bigger and bigger. At this moment, just remaining unscathed under Scarface's attacks was already very exhausting, not to mention surrounding him. Scarface's every punch was landing with precision, every single punch was attacking the blade of the flying swords, and moreover, each punch had a strength which caused a jolt in the body of the master of the sword. If it were not for the 5-direction profound female spell, through which these 5 women were sharing combat information as well as timing all attacks, and if they were replaced with a single person to face these attacks, that person would have surely been annihilated long ago. Ants are ants, even if they form a sword spell, they will still remain ants. Several tens of punches of Scarface had already enlarged the area of the sword spell by at least 3 times. Under the excitement of the fight, Scarface burst into loud laughter and got out of the spell formation forcibly and started to walk towards Yang Chen. Facing the 5 women profound spell formation alone, without even taking out his flying sword. This Scarface had to have a cultivation of at least the middle Yuning stage. But seeing the results, Yang Chen was delighted in his heart. If these 5 women had a slightly higher cultivation and all of them were at the peak Jidan stage, then Scarface wouldn't be able to escape without injuries. While thinking this, Yang Chen could not help but start grumbling about that idiot Mo Qian. Mo Qian was truly stupid, her disciples didn't lack talent, but even after so much time they had spent robbing others, they were surprisingly only at the middle Jidan stage. She truly was a lazy master who hampered the growth of her disciples. Even when Scarface was coming towards him, Yang Chen was completely calm and unworried, his gaze fixed on Scarface's face. Suddenly he made a signal with his hand. If these little girls won't do, how about including me too? Shikui's rough voice echoed behind Scarface. Scarface was greatly startled. Someone had surprisingly crept behind him silently and he didn't even notice. How was this possible? When he turned around, he saw Shikui's huge fist coming towards him. Bang. 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 The punches of both Shikui and Scarface were knocking against each other continuously, which could shock anyone to their core. Finally these 5 women didn't have to confront the tyrannical might of Scarface alone, and their 5 flying swords quickly separated and began to continuously attack Scarface. Although Scarface had the Naming flame armor to protect his body, he couldn't rely on it alone. A flying swords would often reach his body, and at that time, he would repel it in one punch, but he didn't have any surplus strength to attack these 5 women, as he had to confront Shikui's next punch immediately. This fight between 2 Yuning stage experts in addition to the 5 female profound spell formation had turned the mountain woods in the surroundings to wood chips. Initially, the forte of the 5 women was speed, which only required a moment's effort to unleash, so those mountains, woods and rocks which could possibly hinder these flying swords had to be chopped down. Thus after a few moments, this region had turned completely bare. Shikui and Scarface were causing explosions using spirit power at the time of punches, and because of that, the surroundings seemed like the god of thunder, Lei Gong, had been wreaking havoc. Pits had formed everywhere, a spectacle too horrible to endure. But there was something strange about this fight. Yuning stage experts had countless tricks and techniques, but both Scarface and Shikui were fighting with only their fists. Shikui wasn't drawing his sword, since he hadn't refined his destined flying sword from his poisonous fang, but why was Scarface also not drawing his sword? But Scarface was alone fighting against Shikui and those 5 women, yet he didn't lose the slightest amount of ground. This already showed one thing clearly. That Shikui's cultivation still couldn't keep up with Scarface. Shikui started howling repeatedly and unleashed his 5th Earth True Kai, which he hadn't used earlier. Sensing the might of this punch, even if he had the Naming flame armor, Scarface still didn't dare to receive it head-on and kept retreating. After retreating several steps continuously, Scarface attacked ferociously. His complexion changed and an earth-shattering pressure suddenly covered everyone. According to his expectations, Yang Chen would lose consciousness immediately, and those 5 women would also not be able to display the complete efficiency of the sword spell, and thus he could face Shikui alone. What Scarface hadn't expected was that Yang Chen was surprisingly still sitting on that mountain rock, 300 meters far from the battle region, without showing any signs of falling unconscious. Even those 5 women hadn't slowed even a bit and were still attacking him relentlessly. Regardless of how much Scarface racked his brains, he was unable to find a reason. Since when could a few middle Jidan stage and an initial foundation stage youngsters disregard the pressure of a Yuning expert? Being driven into corner, Scarface finally revealed his real skill, or at least it seemed so in Yang Chen's eyes. In the previous attacks, Scarface hadn't revealed any killing intent, but the current attack was extremely fierce, as if wanting to destroy the enemy. Su. The light red flying sword suddenly flew out from Scarface's body, and in a flash, it obstructed the sword spell of those women. Soon after that, a halo began to condense around Scarface's fist, and it valiantly collided with Shikui's 5th Earth True Kai. With every fist, the ground below them sank a little bit as if it was being hit a huge iron hammer. The figures of the 2 people were becoming more and more quick, almost turning into 2 rays of light for onlookers. The 5-direction profound female spell was already unable to keep up with them. Good, I have finally been able to satisfy my cravings after so long. Scarface's voice suddenly came through. He had seemingly been able to fight to his heart's content. But you are not my opponent, even with these young girls, you are still not my opponent. Together with what? Suddenly an unfamiliar voice came from the surroundings, which made Scarface tense. When had Yuning experts become so abundant? Furthermore, why were there so many of them in the support of this initial foundation stage youngster? The Pure Yang Palace shouldn't be so formidable, right? Even scarier was that this expert had also appeared silently. Scarface didn't even notice his traces before. Cherishes appeared in his true form from the start. Although the usually huge sand scorpion wasn't several hundred meters long, it was still several meters in size. After changing forms, his carapace had become even stronger. His huge tongs rushed towards Scarface's waist without any warning, and his tail stabbed towards Scarface from the top, like a sharp blade. Another Wielding stage demon beast. Scarface was gobsmacked. Until now, Shikui was fighting with him in human form, and he was in the advantage since Shikui didn't have his destined magic weapon. But now Cherishes had changed into his original shape and was using his physical advantage thoroughly, which made Scarface feel the pressure. Cherishes' outer carapace was strengthened by Fifth Earth True Kai, so even if Scarface's flying sword stabbed it, other than leaving a small trace, it wasn't able to penetrate through. For a while, the sound of a sword stabbing continued to echo, but even after Scarface's flying sword had stabbed Cherishes' outer shell several times, it was unable to do anything against it. Apart from the time when Cherishes attacked him, there was no opportunity of injuring him. On the other side, Shikui was incessantly bombarding him with punches. Having no alternative, Scarface was forced to use his true ability. The Naming flame on the armor began to burn even more brightly, and very quickly several swords were formed around Scarface, and they began to attack relentlessly. But the Fifth Earth True Kai protecting their body, the Naming flame was basically unable to injure them, but they also couldn't gain an advantage. Especially, the flame swords which Scarface had seemed like a sword spell and immediately flew and surrounded the two people. Shikui also shouted loudly and also turned into his original shape. He also was in a compacted form, a several meters long meadow viper, revealed his sharp hunting teeth and fiercely rushed forward to attack. This move had increased the fighting strength of Shikui and Cherishes. The time for which they could remain in human form was still not long, and they were basically unable to display their complete fighting strength when in human form. After turning into original forms, they immediately gained some ground with the help of their instincts for countless years. At this moment, those 5 women surrounding the fight couldn't enter anymore. The spirit power that spilled out in a fight between 3 Wielding stage experts was enough to critically injure these 5 women. Under Yang Chen's control, they were stationed near Yang Chen, alertly observing the surroundings. But the more they fought, the more vigorous Scarface got. 8 flame swords were revolving around his body, stopping all attacks from Shikui and Cherishes while simultaneously attacking. One more flying sword was whirling around at the back of those 2 like a viper, waiting for its chance. Even after they had changed from 1 to 2, Scarface wasn't showing any signs of being defeated. This kind of strength made Yang Chen even more suspicious. Could it be he only let his master slip off because he didn't want to kill people after robbing them? With the strength he was showing currently, just 1 strike was enough to kill Gao Yu on the spot. This Scarface surely had some story behind him. After coming to this conclusion, with one thought he gave an order to Mo Qian, and she immediately disappeared from the hall in the medicine garden and appeared on top of the region where the 3 people were fighting. Soon afterwards, without making any sound, she put her flying sword in front of her face and rushed to attack Scarface. But in the fight, killing intent suddenly appeared in the sky, and in a flash, Scarface sensed the danger, so he placed his flying sword in front of him. Only after obstructing 1 punch did Scarface have the opportunity to see what was attacking him from the top. Another Wielding expert. Scarface began to shake in surprise. When had Wielding experts become so cheap in the Greater Mountains? Going as far as to forming a group to support an initial foundation stage expert. At the instant he saw Mo Qian, Scarface became sure that Mo Qian was also a companion of Yang Chen. Her disguise was similar to all the females at Yang Chen's side. Similar clothes, similar black veil to cover the face. The only difference was that of her cultivation, as Mo Qian was at the middle Wielding stage. With Mo Qian's appearance, the direction of the battle immediately changed. Yang Chen was unable to completely control Mo Qian, therefore he had used simple hypnosis on her. Under his direct command, disregarding her own safety, Mo Qian was attacking with all of her strength, an extremely reckless position. Shikui and Cherishes also realized that Mo Qian was their helper. Therefore, both of them used their huge bodies to act as a shield for Mo Qian, allowing Mo Qian to attack with her full strength. Although these 3 people hadn't cooperated with each other before, at this moment, their cooperation was flawless. Confronting such a difficult enemy, Scarface finally showed his true strength. With a loud howl, he spilled several spell flags, which quickly sank into the ground. Once the spell flag sunk, the entire area was covered with smoke, enveloping everyone within it. None of those 3 could see anything, even their spiritual awareness was slightly affected. These spell flags were basically used to hinder their sensation. Once these spell flags were used, the offense of Mo Qian, Shikui and Cherishes was slowed. At that time, Scarface was controlling 9 flying swords, 1 sword spell and 1 lone sword, as well as controlling the sword spelling, while also resisting 3 Yuning stage expert without losing any ground. His cultivation in Yang Chen's eyes had already reached the late Yuning stage at that moment. Yang Chen wanted to form some sort of contact with Scarface at this moment, but when he diffused his spiritual awareness in the surroundings, a thread of spiritual awareness surprisingly jolted slightly after sensing an unfamiliar spiritual awareness. Who was that? Someone was surprisingly spying on them, using spiritual awareness from not too far. Yang Chen was alarmed and immediately, without paying any more attention to the ongoing fight, made a thread of spiritual awareness tightly follow that unfamiliar spiritual awareness to track its owner. The spiritual awareness was extremely minute. If Yang Chen hadn't cultivated the 3 purity secrets, he basically wouldn't have been able to sense it. Moreover, he only discovered this because there were some slight fluctuations in the spiritual awareness, either because of those spell flags or because of the fight, otherwise Yang Chen was unable to discover it until now. The spiritual awareness was being released from a tree top several hundred meters away. This huge cassia tree had been at the greater mountain for countless years. Although it was extremely thick, the treetop was not very high. If one looked from the bottom to the top, everything at the top could be seen. If it were not for Yang Chen's spiritual awareness drilling into it, he basically would have been unable to determine the thickness of the tree. If an ordinary person had swept his spiritual awareness, he would have believed that this was a part of the forest. This cassia tree had turned into a demon and had the innate ability to hide its presence, which was even more outstanding than the meadow viper. Other people would be basically unable to discover this anomaly. Yang Chen thought of something and immediately used the beast controlling secrets, and when their spiritual awareness met, he passed on one thought. Are we disturbing Senior? Eh? The cassia tree demon was caught off guard, but it immediately became normal again. A trace of extremely formidable spiritual awareness mixed with Yang Chen's spiritual awareness, which was removed in a flash, leaving behind a trace for communicating with Yang Chen. Interesting little calf, how did you all become humans? Senior, my sect has an appearance transforming secrets, which has to be cultivated. While communicating with it, Yang Chen didn't hide anything and directly told it about the appearance transforming secrets. Since you have called me senior, this old man also wouldn't be impolite in taking your things. Nevertheless, the cassia tree demon immediately accepted and soon afterwards communicated further. In return, how about this old man helps you capture your opponent? If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 153 Patiently Waiting for Revenge. Why not? Yang Chen was naturally willing, but he still thought that there was some ulterior motive in this deal, so he could not help but warn him. That person is wearing an armor of Nanming Flame, so you must be careful, I want him alive. No problem. The cassia tree demon immediately agreed and instructed at the same time. Tell that metal-attributed woman to get out of the way. This was once again an unfathomable mystery, but Yang Chen didn't hesitate and immediately issued a command to Mo Qian, and she immediately started to fly towards Yang Chen. Before reaching Yang Chen, she came across the domed hall of the medicine garden and entered it. The 3 remaining fighters didn't know why Yang Chen had called Mo Qian, but at that moment everyone was so furious and immersed in battle that no one cared about that. The influence of 4 Yuning stage experts fighting had already influenced an area with a radius of several hundred miles long ago. But nobody dared to check it out for the fear of burning their own hands and were only listening to the sound of activity, trying to guess what was happening. The people of the Devil Flame Valley had also discovered this berserk pressure and everyone's complexion was serious. A big battle was taking place so close to the Devil Flame Valley and by the looks of it, it involved several Yuning experts. What had happened, why were they so angry? At the same time as people far away were guessing, Yang Chen was also trying to guess what kind of method the cassia tree demon wished to use to deal with Scarface. But he didn't have to think about it for long, as he could see the answer. A complete mountain, a several meters high mountain, a few hundred meters away from the battle of those people, suddenly flew up from the ground. As if it had been uprooted, it began to disintegrate into mountain rocks and began to fall on the battle of those 3 people from the sky. Yang Chen could clearly see that the mountain had countless thick roots deeply embedded. These roots were without question the roots of that old cassia tree demon. That old demon had surprisingly used the strength of its own roots and directly pulled out that mountain and smashed it towards the battle. Those 3 immersed in their battle did not discover that mountain until it was already on top of their heads, and by the time they found out, there was not enough time to take cover, so they only had the option of using their own strength to resist this mountain striking upon them. Bang! The loud sound echoed, and in the region where the 3 people were fighting, a throne suddenly appeared on that mountain's peak, formed like a new small mountain. Yang Chen was not even a little worried that Shikui and Xie would be harmed, they were earth-attributed demon beasts, let alone this mountain, even if it was 100 times larger, they would still be safe and sound, especially after refining the 5th Earth True Kai. Scarface on the other hand wasn't at ease anymore. The spell flags couldn't be taken out and regained in time, so they were also smashed. Just as he used earth evasion, he discovered that among the mountain roots in his surroundings, there were countless tenacious roots surrounding him. Even if he used an animing flame, those roots didn't seem to care much and began to shrink their grip. Soon, only enough space for Scarface to stand was left, making him unable to take even a single step. The animing flame was burning brightly, but the tree root secreted a peculiar juice. Regardless of how brightly the flames burned, it was unable to harm the tree roots. At this moment Scarface had realized that he had run into a formidable expert and could only stop his vain struggle and allow the roots to wrap around him. The roots took him out of the mountain base and delivered him in front of Yang Chen. Shikui and Xie had already turned into human shape and were standing at Yang Chen's side, suspiciously looking at everything. Yang Chen only used a single sentence to explain. I ran into a senior of the demon race. Since the old Kasha tree demon had already made his move, Shikui and Xie very quickly discovered the presence of this old tree demon. Plant-type demons sometimes lived much longer than animal-type. Seeing this tree demon's cultivation, even if both of their ages were added, calling him senior would still not be an overstatement. When did the Pure Yang Palace get so many strong demon beasts? Scarface, who was delivered in front of Yang Chen, had his body covered with tree roots, but he hadn't lost consciousness. Apart from not being able to move, he could still talk consciously. At this moment, he didn't have any thoughts of fleeing, so he suspiciously asked. Someone saw you chase my master and attack her once, what do you say? Yang Chen sternly asked. The Spider Woman had said that Scarface had struck her once, then even if he had some kind of story, Yang Chen would not let him off easily. If it were not for my attack, she would not have been sent off flying, but would have been humiliated to death by the young master. Even in this situation Scarface hadn't accepted defeat and only snorted, but although his tone was unyielding, what he had said already explained everything. Yang Chen believed these words. With his strength, Scarface had resisted Mo Qian, Xie and Shikui, so if he wanted to get rid of Gao Yu, it was as easy for him as stretching his finger. Even capturing her would only be a small effort. Even if he wanted to capture her, it was still not worthwhile to pretend to attack her. So regardless of anything else, Scarface had still saved Gao Yu's life. After considering for a moment, Yang Chen transmitted to the old Kasha tree demon. Senior, I request you to let him go. Aren't you worried that he will attack you immediately after being released? The old Kasha tree replied with a chuckle. Yang Chen thought of something and invited the old Kasha tree demon. Senior, this junior knows an exceptionally good place to discuss things, I wonder if Senior is interested. There is no harm in doing it, where is it? The old Kasha tree demon was very daring and was simply not worried of Yang Chen playing any tricks. Yang Chen opened the domed medicine hall and enveloped everyone to take them in. The main body of the old tree demon also entered. Everyone, you must not move around randomly so as to prevent injuries. Yang Chen warned. In fact, even without Yang Chen warning, seeing the 49 high-grade flying swords fluttering at the top made everyone vigilant. Mo Qian and her disciples were as if they had returned home and without saying anything they immediately sat down to cultivate without caring for anything else. Shikui and Xie had also entered there for the first time and were looking around curiously, but none of them took even a single step. The old tree demon had already released Scarface and in a moment he had transformed into a person who had complete hands and feet but was still leaning towards the appearance of a large tree and began to curiously look around. Clearly he had already obtained slight success in the appearance transformation secrets within a short moment. Your master was chased by the order of the young master of the Haoyi Manor, not only for her wealth but also to capture her. Scarface didn't have any more ideas to attack, so he was sitting down on the spot and while looking at Yang Chen, he said. If you want to go to Haoyi Manor, I can lead you there. I will destroy Haoyi Manor for sure, but for what reason are you the henchman of the Haoyi Manor's young master? Yang Chen was not someone easy to cheat. If Scarface didn't give him a reasonable reply for helping him, Yang Chen wouldn't mind beheading him on the spot. I have mortal enmity with the Haoyi Manor. I have infiltrated the Haoyi Manor so that one day I can exterminate it. Scarface said this without the slightest hesitation. I was afraid that the old traitor would recognize me, so I disfigured my face and concealed my cultivation and became his son's henchman, creating disasters everywhere, wishing that some expert would drop in to take revenge. These words were quite reasonable. Previously, everyone Yang Chen had asked had told him that about the Haoyi Manor's atrocities. They committed all kinds of evils, like plundering and killing people without any hesitation. Almost everyone in the Devil Flame Valley knew about it. From the beginning, Yang Chen had thought that the young master of the Haoyi Manor was arrogant and conceited, and his stupid actions only spread the bad name, but hearing Scarface's words, it seemed that he was indeed adding fuel to the fire. He also understood why Scarface had let his master go. Scarface deliberately showed off his scar, and then afterwards he would always allow people to leave. After being released, someone could always come back with their sex strength. That was Scarface's intention. Your cultivation is already at the peak of the Yuning stage, can't you just exterminate the Haoyi Manor yourself? Yang Chen was confused and asked. I haven't heard of any defying stage expert at the Haoyi Manor. You're slightly less informed. Scarface had already determined that although Yang Chen had the lowest cultivation here, he was the person who was making all the decisions, so he explained to him. The master of Haoyi Manor has 4 brothers, all of them at the peak of the Yuning stage. Although I can fight them alone, they have some spell formation which allows them to join together, which is very difficult to deal with. That was passed down by Haoyi Manor's ancestor. The 4 devil spell. The combined assault of these 4 brothers is even sufficient to hold their ground against a defying stage expert. Scarface explained, without concealing anything. I have already tested it once. Under their spell formation, I could not last even for the time it takes a stick of incense to burn. If I had not escaped quickly at that time, I would have already died. Therefore you thought of using the bad reputation of their young master and waited for any expert's retaliation. Yang Chen still didn't understand one thing, so he asked again. It could be assumed that this is not your first or second time doing this, so why are the Haoyi Manor's people living so nicely until now? That young master, although he is arrogant, it is not like he does not have a brain. Scarface vented his anger. Before every attack, he would make proper inquiries regarding the victims, whether they had some backing or not, otherwise he would certainly not act. Regarding the time of your master, I was responsible, so knowing that she was from the Pure Yang Palace, I hid that information to draw out someone like you. Speaking until here, a strange light suddenly appeared in the eyes of Scarface. If little brother can help me eradicate the Haoyi Manor, allowing me to take revenge and wipe out the grudge, I, Scarface, am willing to lay down my life as a present for you. Scarface could already see that, although the strength of Shikui and Xia was slightly inferior than him, their bodies were very strong. Even his Nanming flame armor couldn't do anything to them. And that old tree demon who had captured him was even more frightening. In one simple move, he had captured him. If that old tree demon were to act, then the demise of the 4 masters of the Haoyi Manor was certain. Even if the old tree demon didn't help, just this domed palace hall where he was sitting right at that moment also had some unknown sword spell. Those 49 swords were all high grade, and one could easily imagine the potential strength of one strike of this sword spell. After burning with hatred for many years, Scarface had finally seen hope, so he was a little impatient. He had completely devoted himself to his hatred and suffered untold humiliation, but he had still listened to the orders of that young master, bossing him around. He had already reached the last straw long ago, but now that an opportunity presented itself, he hastily wanted to capture it. Although you gave my master a way to survive, her serious injury still had something to do with you. Yang Chen was attentively watching Scarface and fiercely asked him. What do you have to say about that? As long as you help me take revenge, the day when the Haoyi Manor disappears, I will give up my life to compensate for your master. His whole life, Scarface had devoted to hatred, which had become his only reason to live. He hadn't thought much about the matters after his hatred was resolved. Scarface's circumstances made Yang Chen remember himself. In his previous life, he was similar to Scarface, living only for the sake for taking his revenge. Even in this life, he had been unable to forget that until now. But since the heavens had given him another chance, he also wanted to make his master's life even more beautiful, instead of taking revenge. Yang Chen could understand his mental state, so after thinking to himself for some time, Yang Chen made the decision. You don't need to speak further, I also want to destroy the Haoyi Manor. This is not for your revenge, but for my master's revenge. Upon hearing this, Scarface showed a delighted expression, but before he could say anything, Yang Chen stopped him. But since you have injured my master, after this affair is over, I want you to kowtow and apologize to her and do any 3 things she asks of you, do you agree? This was a pleasant surprise, outside of his expectations. Even if Scarface didn't want to agree, he furiously nodded his head, unable to say anything due to excitement. Impatiently, he immediately stood up, but he finally remembered Yang Chen's warning that here, he should not take even one step randomly, so after standing up, he didn't move around, but the expression on his face had become comparatively more impatient. Yang Chen turned towards the old Kasha tree demon and cupped his hands towards him. Senior, this junior requests Senior to help with something. After that matter is finished, this junior will present you with wood attributed body dividing secrets. Is it possible for Senior to agree? Body dividing secrets. The Kasha tree demon had already cultivated the appearance-transforming secrets very quickly. After training for just a short while, he could already speak, even though his speech was rigid. What is that? Since Senior is a wood-attributed demon beast, your main body can take roots at a secure location, and your divided body can move around anywhere. Yang Chen simply replied. As long as the main body is not killed, even if your divided body is destroyed, Senior will not die. The old tree demon immediately realized the difficulty of Yang Chen's body dividing secrets, so without much thinking, he directly nodded. Okay, we have a deal. When do we attack? Senior, wait for some time. After getting the tree demon to agree, Yang Chen turned to Scarface again. Hearing that Yang Chen had already obtained the support of that old tree demon, Scarface was unable to contain his joy. When Yang Chen faced him, Scarface was unable to express his joy in words. Scarface, I can teach you a method which will allow you to break the Four Devils spell and cut the enemy yourself. Yang Chen was trying to entice him. But in return, after this matter is settled, I want you to give me a strand of the Naming Flame, do you agree? Yes, I agree. How could Scarface not agree? Hearing Yang Chen's words, he almost started jumping with joy. He clenched his fists, which made a crackling sound, and his excitement could be seen clearly. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 154 Eliminating Haoyi Manor. Haoyi Manor was very large. It had an area of several hundred mu and had servants protecting the courtyards and so on. They numbered almost 1,000 people. Suddenly at midnight at a distance of almost 10 miles from the Haoyi Manor, a few people appeared. Senior, can you bind this entire building? Yang Chen could see a spell formation protecting Haoyi Manor and asked the old tree demon at his side. This is just a trifling area of a few hundred mu, this old man's roots can cover even bigger manors. The old tree demon looked like an old man at this moment, his beard was very long and he was wearing a type of mottled clothes. His appearance exactly resembled an old man in dire straits. After saying this, the old tree demon suddenly seemed to sink his legs into the ground. After that, Yang Chen and others immediately sensed large movements from the grounds underneath. After a short moment, the tree demon, with a smile with his feet still inside the ground, said. Alright then, I can assure you that nobody can escape from here, you can attack now. The old tree demon had lived for countless years, so long that even Yang Chen could not judge the depth of his cultivation. But regarding his words, Yang Chen had no doubt. Scarface, regardless of whatever grievance or hatred you have, there is someone you will never attack. Yang Chen strongly urged him and particularly warned him. That young master, who had designs on my master, he is mine. Both eyes of Scarface, who had been restraining himself for an extremely long time, had turned blood red, the Naming Flame armor on his body brightened, and the 8 flame swords began to hover around his body. He issued a loud shout towards the Haoyi Manor in the distance, and his figure immediately turned into a blur, rushing forward. Qikui and Xie, standing behind Yang Chen's body, also had similar expressions. When Yang Chen had asked them to come, he had told them they were going to kill people. For a long time, they had not been able to release their killing intent, which was quite unpleasant for these two. This Haoyi Manor doesn't have any innocent people, so you two seniors can go on a rampage. Yang Chen had investigated the Haoyi Manor properly. There were no innocent people there. Since they were only there to kill sinners, Yang Chen didn't feel even a bit of guilt. But don't rob that young master from me. Qikui and Xie burst into a loud laughter and transformed into their original forms. Afterwards they rapidly began to move in towards the manor from 2 different directions, in order to kill. Soon, a wave of blood-curdling screams could be heard from the manor, together with countless terrified cries of help. A few people tried to flee by using their flying swords, but just as they had gone 2 miles outside, a huge root appeared from somewhere and wrapped around them, throwing them back into the manor. Yang Chen was watching everything indifferently, but suddenly he loudly yelled. For every grievance someone is responsible and for every debt there is a debtor. Young master of this manor, since you intended to rob and kill my master, I will end your dog life. After he finished speaking, regardless of whether people had heard it or not, Yang Chen began to take large strides and move towards the entrance of the manor. Only, after walking a few steps, countless blood-colored branches suddenly appeared from his body. Reflecting the fire burning far away, he appeared like a monster with tentacles growing all around him. There were many people in manor, which included many experts. Soon Yang Chen heard the sound of fighting. But the young master should be at the central region with the main forces, and from the Naming Flame, which could be seen in the sky from far away, it was likely that Scarface had already begun fighting with those 4 brothers. Suddenly 5 women appeared behind Yang Chen's body, who rushed to the rear of the manor to kill people. Yang Chen himself remained standing at the main entrance of the manor, calmly waiting for someone to walk into the trap. Nobody could escape by flying. All three directions had formidable enemies, so the only way was the main entrance, where Yang Chen was, so there would inevitably be someone who would want to escape from Yang Chen's side. Apart from the four manor masters, there was no other Yuning expert in the Haoyi manor, so Yang Chen, together with the blood phantom vine, was already able to deal with any remaining people. Moreover, there was still Mo Qian left. The Yuning expert was ready to mount a sneak attack at all times. Mo Qian only knew how to obey orders, but could not judge the situation by herself, so for fear that she would also get rid of that young master, Yang Chen didn't let her out and kept her only for defense. The people fleeing from the gate were not able to come in front of Yang Chen. They could not even see Yang Chen's face clearly before they collapsed because of the blood phantom vine's poison mist, and afterward they could not even feel the vines dragging them to Yang Chen. As long as it was not the young master whom Yang Chen was looking for, Yang Chen would allow these people to serve as the blood phantom vine's nourishment. Within the short period of an hour, the people dying under Yang Chen's hand had already crossed over 1,000. Finally, the terrible massacre made everyone inside the manor feel dread when a group of people holding each other suddenly rushed to the main entrance of the manor. "Protect the madam, protect the young master." Several people who were clearly henchmen were distributed in the surroundings of a man and woman and rushed out. Seeing Yang Chen's silhouette in the distance, several people immediately rushed towards him. Hearing the name of madam and young master, a smile immediately made its way on Yang Chen's face. After waiting for a very long time, this young master would finally fall in his hands. "Kill him." Looking at Yang Chen standing at the middle of the road obstructing the way, that young master immediately grew angry and loudly yelled at the few henchmen protecting him. In all directions of the manor, formidable enemies were fighting. Nobody knew where they had come from. What was most astonishing for that young master was that his most powerful lackey, Scarface, was among these people. He didn't know why Scarface had concealed his strength, but he was surprisingly at the Yuning stage and was evenly matched with his father and three uncles. The manor master had sensed that the events were far from encouraging while engaged with Scarface and had ordered them to flee. Inside the manor was a secret pathway to the outside, but just as they were about to go in, they discovered that the secret path had collapsed because of some explosion. He wanted to flee using earth evasion, but he suddenly discovered that he was being obstructed by something. In any case, escaping from the old tree demon would indeed be very strange. So there was no other option than running away through the front door. That sulking young master had just shouted the order of killing him when he suddenly discovered that those resilient guards of his were curled in front of that person's figure and soon began to start screaming and dry up. Seeing such a dreadful scene, that young master was scared out of his wits and was just thinking of recoiling back when he heard Yang Chen's scary voice which was cheerful on discovering him. "Young manor master, since you have come then you must not think of returning." You, who are you?" the young master asked almost weepingly. "What kind of hatred does the Haoyi manor have with you that you have formed such an evil scheme?" Even if he was an idiot, seeing Yang Chen standing at the main gate, he could easily see that Yang Chen was the one giving the orders. The young master thought to himself that he had never seen Yang Chen, so he should not have offended him in any way. Since there was no hatred or enmity, why was Yang Chen leading such a massacre here? "Young master truly is a person with short memory," Yang Chen said with a smile. 2 months ago, didn't you order your people to attack on a female Jidan stage cultivator? Furthermore, you also robbed her red sun metal soul. Has the young master already forgotten this? Killing people and robbing them has probably already become your habit, young master, hasn't it? What relation does that woman have with you?" That young master was greatly astonished. He realized that he had kicked a metal board that time. But how could he know that the female Jidan cultivator had such a fearsome backer like Yang Chen? "She was my master," Yang Chen slowly said to him, realizing that the young master had remembered. "How is this possible?" The young master loudly yelled, as if he had gone mad. "She isn't even on your level, how can she be your master? What is so impossible about this?" Yang Chen smiled and making the blood phantom vine retreat, he alone confronted the young master's party. Without the blood phantom vine, everyone immediately probed Yang Chen's cultivation. But the results gave everyone an even greater surprise. Initial foundation stage. How was this possible? Of those guards who had charged at him just a moment ago, who wasn't at the Jidan stage? While everyone was stunned, the woman behind the young master suddenly yelled and a flying sword rushed towards Yang Chen to behead him. Ding. The ringing sound echoed and that flying sword was obstructed by some unknown flying sword. Soon after, another figure with her face covered appeared from behind Yang Chen and like a cheetah, she rushed towards the group of the young master. That female who had just attacked was caught by her throat by the masked woman, who then flew into the sky with her. All those people suddenly heard the sound of a neck snapping and the body and head of that woman landed in different places. When they heard the sound of the body and head falling to the ground, all of them began to shake uncontrollably. After this, that masked woman again returned behind Yang Chen and disappeared, as if she had never even appeared. That young master's eyeballs almost came out after seeing this. An initial foundation stage youngster had so many powerful bodyguards. By the looks of it, they all seemed to be at the Yuaning stage. How could he not regret? Why did he have to go and provoke such a monster? I am ready to compensate you. Even that piece of red sun metal soul, you can have it back. That young master's voice started to tremble due to his nervousness, and with shivering hands he pulled out a pile of things from his Qianqin pouch. These are for you, just let me go, just let me go. In fact, there were many good items among the things that young master had pulled from his Qianqin pouch. Once Yang Chen's eyes swept over them, he immediately discovered many materials at least as precious as the red sun metal soul. But how could these things make Yang Chen's fury disappear? Looking at these things with an expression of disdain, Yang Chen sneered mockingly. Kill you for what? These things are mine already and I can take them after killing you. Since you haven't killed me for so long, you definitely want to leave me alive. Although there was still some slight panic in the young master's voice, he hastily said things trying to curry favor, as if he had found something to reassure him. What do you want? Tell me. As long as I can give it to you, I will give it to you. If you want to know something, I will tell you, but just please don't kill me. Clever. Yang Chen revealed the trace of a smile and praised him. Surprisingly, you know that since you are still alive, I definitely want something. Tell me, tell me. The young master immediately turned cheerful. As long as you tell me and I have it, I will give it to you. In reality, I don't want anything from you. Yang Chen calmly shook his head and continued on. You also can't give me anything I want. Then why haven't you killed me yet? Again the young master turned fearful, he also began to sob. You definitely have some aim, definitely some purpose, just tell me. The reason why I still haven't killed you is this. Yang Chen gazed fixedly at those frightened men and women and calmly said. Only that I want you to look at the demise of Haoyi Manor before you die, that's all. What? Hearing Yang Chen's reason, the young master's legs became weak and he immediately sat down on the ground. The women behind his body also began to weep. That slaughter within the Haoyi Manor had already advanced to the finale. The painful screams had also become rare and the loudest sounds were coming from the battle between Scarface and the four masters. The 100 or so Mu of the Haoyi Manor were completely razed to the ground. Impossible. The young master loudly yelled. My father and my uncles joined together to form the Four Devil spell. Even a Dacheng stage expert cannot deal with it, so wishing to exterminate my Haoyi Manor is absolutely impossible. As soon as my father and uncles kill your people, you won't be able to escape from your calamity. Knowing that Yang Chen would kill him in any case, the young master actually released a strong pressure and began to threaten Yang Chen. Let us go right now, I am the master, so I will make the previous matter forgotten, otherwise, we will destroy you indiscriminately. My father and uncles will certainly not let you go, you and your people will all be killed. As if fulfilling the prophecy, just as the young master's words had barely left his mouth, the victor was also decided in the fight of those 5 people in the Haoyi Manor. With the rumbling sounds, a glaring light continued to flicker incessantly, and soon afterwards, a flame sword began to wave around, and the silhouettes of several people were thrown out not very far from them. There was one thing common among the 4 people who were falling down. Everyone was burned completely, and while falling their bodies began to disintegrate. By the time they had fallen to the ground, they had already turned into pieces of burnt meat. But that young master and the few women sitting behind him, who were extremely familiar with those 4 figures, involuntarily yelled madly and then began to sob loudly. Those 4 people were clearly the 4 master of the manor, but they had already been annihilated. Scarface's figure appeared immediately afterwards, and looking at those people in front of Yang Chen, he burst into a loud laughter. There is still some filth remaining, receive your death. And he directly rushed towards them. Before the young master could turn his head around, he already heard a series of screams. When he turned around, all he saw was the ground littered with dead bodies. At the last moment, Scarface had remembered that the young master was Yang Chen's prey, so he hadn't touched him. After the death of these people, Haoyi Manor had become completely quiet without any more screams. Soon, Shikui, Xieshi and those 5 women appeared from different directions. While walking, Shikui showed a cheerful expression after fulfilling his craving, just like Xie next to him. For every grievance someone is responsible and for every debt there is a debtor. Yang Chen walked a few steps and walked to face the young master. The young master of the manor, since you dared to move against my master, even 100 deaths cannot save yourself. Farewell. After speaking, he slashed the flying sword in his hand once and that young master's head immediately flew. After that, Yang Chen caught the severed head at his hair bun began to walk away with blood still dripping from the severed head. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 155 Fate of the Auction House. Haoyi Manor had been completely razed to the ground, Scarface hadn't left even a single person alive. The entire manor was like an impenetrable fortress being surrounded by the old tree demon, so nobody was able to escape. That young manor master's head was preserved properly by Yang Chen, who wanted to return it to his master. This mess of the Haoyi Manor still required someone to straighten it, however. There were dead bodies of thousands of people, as well as their belongings, which wouldn't decay and disappear with the dead bodies. Thus, with Scarface's advice, Yang Chen and the others started gathering the spoils of battle. For all those years, the people of the Haoyi Manor had robbed a lot of good things in the greater mountains. Just that young master alone had robbed materials and magic weapons worth several high-grade spirit stones in a decade, then what about his father and the other 3 brothers, who were even more greedy? Yang Chen's sword box required large a number of flying swords, so he wasn't polite and took all of the flying swords he could. In addition to that, the red sun metal soul wasn't something which he would let go. After all, it was something which Gao Yu had found for him after a long search, so he wanted to get the hold of it no matter what. The remaining things were divided equally among all of them. The Haoyi Manor was quite rich, all of these things had filled up almost 100 ordinary Qianqin pouches. Finally, since nobody was in the mood to fight over things among themselves, the Qianqin pouches were divided evenly. Anyone could get anything, so nobody had an advantage, nor were they at a loss. Scarface, who had finally taken his revenge, lit a fire and burned the entire Haoyi Manor to the ground. From then on, there was no Haoyi Manor in this world. Scarface also abided by his promise as he took out one of the 8 flame swords on the Nanming flame armor and gave it to Yang Chen as a present. Scarface hadn't actually believed that Yang Chen would teach him some method to deal with the 4 devil spell, but the things that Yang Chen had taught him afterwards were completely logical, allowing him to fulfill his desire of revenge personally. With old tree demon to keep watch as well as Shikui, Xia and Yang Chen to assist him, Scarface faced the 4 masters of the Haoyi Manor with great confidence. Once the fight began, the enemy had sensed that Scarface was very difficult to deal with and thus immediately unleashed the 4 devil spell. This 4 devil spell was the unique skill of those 4 brothers to save their lives, which they had stolen from a bag of some expert after they had sneakily attacked on him during their adolescence. When it was unleashed, it would reveal endless might. Enemies could only save their lives by escaping at high speed, otherwise even a Dacheng stage expert would be unable to do anything in front of this. But Scarface discovered that the method which Yang Chen had taught him was useful. Not just useful, but extremely useful. Yang Chen did not tell him to look for some particular flaw in the 4 devil spell and attack it, but rather told him about the places where the attacks of spell could not reach him. If the 4 devil spell was launched, it had extremely formidable strength, but it had one fatal weakness. That was that there were some positions which could be used for cover. Very few people knew about this secret, but unfortunately for them, Yang Chen was one of them. Perhaps just missing 1 or 2 attacks would not have mattered much, but if all the attacks are missed at every decisive moment, then it could be a fatal weakness of the 4 devil spell, or rather, fatal weakness for the people who had arranged the 4 devil spell. Continuously sending attacks into empty air and the backlash which it brings with itself could accumulate on the body of the people operating the spell step by step. When Scarface began to use this method of hiding, the 4 manor masters were already doomed to die. Unfortunately, the 4 manor masters did not know that they would have to face such serious consequences and only kept believing that this time the attack hadn't hit because the enemy was dodging quickly. After a few hours, because the backlash was accumulating, the Pacifist stage experts finally died on the spot, being burned from inside. Ecstasy, astonishment and disbelief. Looking at the 4 manor masters who were defeated by himself alone, Scarface had very complicated emotions. Currently Scarface couldn't see Yang Chen as just a simple youngster anymore. He was clearly just an initial foundation stage youngster, but he knew far more things than the Yuning stage experts present. Moreover, because of Yang Chen, he was able to take the revenge with his own hands, so he had an almost blinding worship for Yang Chen, to the stage of following his every word. But after his immense hatred had been settled, Scarface suddenly felt that he didn't have the drive to move forward anymore. He did not know what should he do in the future. Should he go and train so as to search for the path for ascension, or should he stay at the greater mountains? Scarface was at a loss. No need to think about it, there is still one great enemy left. As if he had realized Scarface's dilemma, Yang Chen stepped forwards and patted on his shoulder. The auction house of the Devil Flame Valley, they are also one of the main culprits. Scarface had been the #1 henchman, so he was completely aware of the auction house's role in the robbing and the killings. He agreed and obediently began to walk towards the Devil Flame Valley behind Yang Chen. Shikui and Xie were also completely satisfied. Even when they were at the desolate valley, they hadn't been able to kill people so freely. Slaughtering the innocents and killing scoundrels to wipe out a grudge were two completely different things. They were completely calm. The auction house also had a great influence, but as long as there were people, someone was bound to give in to greed. All of the information Hao Yi Manor's young master obtained was most likely received from the young master responsible for the affairs of the auction house. That one young master was responsible for supplying the information while this young master was responsible for killing people and looting their things, which were then divided between the both of them. Thus this point had already broken the rules of the auction house, moreover the rules which they themselves had determined. That's why the auction house had provided them with special mantles for hiding their appearance, which were fitted with special compasses to leave a trail. The rules they themselves had set had been thoroughly broken by them behind the stages. Yang Chen wanted the old tree demon precisely to deal with the auction house. Previously, at the Hao Yi Manor, he had just assisted them for their friendship, but the auction house was the main target where his help was needed. Compared to Hao Yi Manor, the defenses of the auction house were even tighter, and they also had more experts. Moreover, in case it was not handled properly, the entire Devil Flame Valley could rise against them. The most troublesome thing was that the auction house itself was a magic weapon. The huge auction house not only offered a place for auctions, but was also a magic weapon with absolute defense. As long as people entered it, they would be safe from all kinds of attacks. If this kind of magic weapon was not taken care of quickly, attacking someone was just impossible. The auction house hadn't fallen until now because of that reason. 3 days later, Yang Chen's party arrived outside of the Devil Flame Valley. Yang Chen's aim was simple. The master of the auction house and that young master were both people who had a connection to the attack on his master, they had to die. Hao Yi Manor's information still hadn't been passed to here. In fact, there was no possibility that it would be passed on to here. If not for someone to pass through there by chance or someone who was visiting a friend, then the Hao Yi Manor, which had already been turned to ruins, would never be discovered by anyone. As long as it was not discovered, the people of the auction house would not notice for time being, which would be even more convenient for Yang Chen. This was also the reason why Yang Chen had first made his move on Hao Yi Manor. If he had first attacked the auction house, which had great fame and prestige, maybe the young master of the Hao Yi Manor would have already run away. In half a day, a rumor began to spread like wildfire in the Devil Flame Valley. The auction house had been colluding with Hao Yi Manor and was involved in the business of killing people to rob them, which Scarface was completely aware of. This rumor was being spread by Scarface himself. After some time, the place, the people who participated, the items sold by auction and what things they had seized or planned to seize were all made public. In fact, this was no longer being considered a rumor, but rather a list of items of the victims. Anyone with a brain could immediately discover that the items sold by the auction house on the list were all real, and there was one thing common with all these items. Their whereabouts were all currently unknown. The people who had participated in the attack were also recognized. When the people recalled their whereabouts at that time, it all seemed true as proclaimed on this list. But the analysis of this list and adding in the information which Scarface had provided, everything became clear. The reputation of the auction house reached rock bottom in a very short amount of time. The master of the auction house did his utmost to block this information, but who could block information when they wanted within the greater mountains? The more it was blocked, the more it appeared that they were guilty. The entire matter was spread, bubbling and gurgling. People did not dare to pass by the auction house's surroundings anymore. This was still not over. Most fierce was the appearance of those compasses. These few compasses could search for any person who was wearing the appearance hiding cloak. So anyone who attended the auction could be tracked. Almost everyone in the Devil Flame Valley had an appearance hiding cloak. After a few confirmations, all of the rumors had ironclad evidence. People who possessed the appearance hiding cloak immediately destroyed it as soon as they heard the information. No one had anticipated that the appearance hiding cloaks, which facilitated their participation in the auction, were actually a way to their own demise. Fortunately, the majority of them were poor and could not afford good items, otherwise there would have been no difference between them and the people who had gone missing. The auction house had thoroughly become the target of everyone's criticism. Everyone in the Devil Flame Valley was watching it like a tiger watching its prey. If it was not for the formidable strength of the auction house, these people would have already surrounded it. The master was greatly alarmed, but he didn't dare to take any action. This time, he also couldn't complain to the young master, after all he had also agreed to many things tacitly. Those two people were tied by karma. One could not escape without the other. He had broken the rules of the auction house, which the owner also knew now, so apart from death, he didn't have any choice. Even if the young master was the owner's favorite son, it would be very difficult for him to escape punishment. Although the master had thought of running away, he knew about the owner's formidable influence. If he took the responsibility together with the young master, perhaps there was a chance for him to save his life, but if he ran away just before the battle, then his life would be more miserable than death. The only option right now was to retreat within the auction house and maintain his guard and afterward send information to notify the owner. As for settling the matter, that was already not something which a trifling master, who was only responsible for looking after the regular affairs of the auction house, could resolve. The reason why the auction house had been standing tall in the Devil Flame Valley of the Greater Mountains was their formidable strength, not just their manner of doing business. Although such a large affair has occurred, the master was convinced that those people in the Devil Flame Valley could only keep on shouting to express their resentments, but attacking the auction house was not possible. If the master did not want them to, those people could not even enter the main gate of the auction house. Despite however clear that was, the master would never have thought that someone would actually attack the main gate or even use such an unreasonably shocking method to attack. This was simply unimaginable to the master. Suddenly the people of the Devil Flame Valley had witnessed a shocking scene which made them unable to believe their eyes. The entire auction house was suddenly uprooted from the ground and thrown into the air. Within the air, it was once again forcibly pulled down and ruthlessly smashed into the ground. Nobody understood what had happened, but everyone knew one thing. That the attack on the auction house would bring great trouble. The master's endless pride in the defense of the auction house was shattered like glass in front of the old tree demon who had lived for countless years. A series of strikes began to crazily fall on the outer surface of the auction house. The master frightfully discovered that the defense of the auction house was being stripped layer by layer. Every strike was critically damaging to the auction house. After a few attacks, the auction house was completely shaken up by these strikes. Bang! At the same time as the auction house's final layer of defense was broken, the huge auction house disintegrated. Several people began to come out, like bees evacuating from a honeycomb. But just as they were about to come out, they immediately sensed a pressure as if 30,000 caddies were falling from the sky, which immediately made them recall the previous attacks on the auction house. Nobody dared to resist and immediately rushed out, but they couldn't see an enemy, yet they could sense endless killing intent everywhere. Where is the master? Where is the young master? The voice suddenly echoed in everyone's ears, but the owner of the voice could not be seen. Everyone's eyes involuntarily turned to the master and the young master. The identities of those two were immediately exposed under the questioning gazes of everyone. Senior. Myself is greatly terrified in your presence. If I have offended Senior in any way, I request Senior to come out and tell myself personally, and I will make sure that Senior is immediately handed over the compensation by the owner. Just recently their fraud had been exposed, and now this attack came, there was no need to ask, both matters were definitely related. The master could only step in personally, hoping that the enemy would give them a chance to negotiate, to give face to the owner. If you and that young master die, I will not investigate further. That strange voice echoed in their ears again. Your auction house is struck off the face of the earth from now on. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 156 My courtyard has abundant spirit power. Demanding their master's and young master's life, how could the people of auction house agree? Perhaps the master could be abandoned, but who would dare to abandon the young master? Their only choice was to fight to the death. The problem was that the enemy did not give them this chance. While the master and the young master were still hesitating, the ground suddenly opened up and engulfed both of them. No matter that they were both at the peak Zhanxian stage, all struggle was in vain, and they mysteriously disappeared in front of everyone's eyes, leaving behind a group of guards and administrative people, poking the place as if they were dreaming. This time the people of the auction house were in great trouble. The master was expendable, but the young master was also taken away, and as everyone had heard, the intention of the enemy was to take the young master's life. If the owner knew about this, all of the auction house's guards could forget about leaving there alive. Someone among them suddenly shouted loudly. The young master is dead, quickly run for it. Rumble. The group of people looking at each other in dismay began to flee. In any case, this world was extremely large, even the owner would not pointlessly search for a few guards. If their cultivation base was strong enough, they could escape to some place far away before it was too late and remain alive. They were clever enough to even take away the items of the auction house, and before the people of the Devil Flame Valley could understand what had happened, this place was completely deserted, without the trace of any person. The auction house of the Devil Flame Valley, which had a large amount of fame and prestige as well as the most secret information in the region, had surprisingly been completely annihilated in a single day. The people of the Devil Flame Valley then recalled all of those pitiful people who had been killed because of the auction house. Maybe they had some special patron. Now, since the complete truth had been revealed, it would certainly be investigated for a lot of people. Because of this, the Devil Flame Valley would certainly become a place for quarrels where normal cultivators couldn't stay for long. In fact, many people had already begun to pack their things and escape. Many people were very remorseful. They had, with great difficulty, found such a good encampment in the greater mountains, but now they were forced to depart. It was no surprise that they were unwilling. But strictly speaking, this could not be blamed on outsiders. If they hadn't been so apathetic towards these matters, the auction house wouldn't have become so arrogant. Ultimately, nobody could be judged as completely right or wrong. Yang Chen was not responsible for the Devil Flame Valley in any way, so for him, since his master had met with misfortune here, he did not care that these people were being forced to leave. Him not wiping out the Devil Flame Valley was already giving too much face to them. As for where the people of Devil Flame Valley would go, it was not his problem. That old Kasha tree demon was definitely very strong. He had dealt with the auction house almost by himself. Even the master and the young master were captured by him alone. When the two people were brought in front of Yang Chen, their cultivation had already been sealed. When they saw Yang Chen, both of them immediately realized what sort of mistake they had made this time. An initial foundation stage cultivator coming to the Devil Flame Valley should have already thrown up a lot of questions. Moreover, someone who could take out a top-grade spirit stone just like that, which was something even the young master could not do, it would only be a miracle if he did not have any great power backing him. What kind of stupidity had risen in the young master's mind at that time that he got the idea to attack Yang Chen? Maybe it was Yang Chen's wealth or his low cultivation making him seem like a good target. Fellow Taoist, our young master is stupid. He should not have offended you, but by all means, you also should not lower yourself to our young master's level. As the master saw Yang Chen, he spoke as if a will to survive had rushed forth in him. I will kowtow and apologize to you here. Whatever compensation you want, I offer you double. As long as you let us go, any condition is not a problem. But in that master's eyes, Yang Chen was so young and had so much authority, he would surely not back down but as long as he lowered his head and apologized to Yang Chen, admitting his guilt and giving him compensation, maybe it would cool off Yang Chen's anger and allow them to live. Other people might not know, but that master had seen many such a situation with the second-generation young master. He would get angry over small things in one moment and afterwards the matter would be settled when people flattered him and offered compensation. But the master could not even imagine that Yang Chen wanted to kill him not for himself, but for his master Gao Yu. That young master also hadn't thought that the female who seemed to be insignificant, whom they had attacked 2 months ago, was the real trigger here. These words you should say to those dead people. Yang Chen sneered and took a step forward. He was just about to attack. Fellow Taoist, do you know who is behind us? Do you know who the owner is? Since begging for forgiveness wasn't working, that master immediately switched to another tactic. He started threatening Yang Chen. The young master is the owner's first son. The owner is extremely fond of him. If you dare to harm him, even if you run to ends of this world, you won't find a place to hide. Yang Chen still hadn't said anything, but the master had seemingly already anticipated what Yang Chen was going to say and spoke in advance. You think that your identity is a mystery and the owner cannot find you. But the owner will certainly investigate the last auction first in this matter. The things you purchased were special and your bids were huge, which will certainly catch the owner's attention, and at that time, the first person owner will find will be you. Oh? Yang Chen seemed to be a little surprised. Then tell me one thing, who is the owner in the end? Once he heard these words, the master immediately relaxed. He was not worried of negotiating with people, what he was most afraid of was that the other person would not even give him a chance to negotiate. As long as he could mention the owner's name, maybe they could get an opportunity to leave there alive. If your master is very popular and affluent, maybe he is willing to pay a huge price to redeem the head of the son he doted on most. Yang Chen's words immediately dumbfounded the master. He was thinking that the conversation was going very good, but now he was speechless again. Redeem the head? That young master was already scared silly on the spot. What did Yang Chen mean by those words? He couldn't remain silent anymore as the head in question right now was his. The young master, for every grievance someone is responsible and for every debt there is a debtor. You have not only broken the rules you set yourself, you have also injured my master. Yang Chen's complexion darkened. There is no need to say anything about you being some powerful person's favorite son, since you have dared to lay hands on my master, even if your father was the Jade Emperor, he wouldn't be able to save your head. After he finished speaking, Yang Chen simply didn't give any more opportunities to the young master and the master to say anything, and, in one slash, the young master's head flew into the air and was then caught by Yang Chen. Then his gaze turned towards that master. The master was already paralyzed because of fear. How could he have anticipated that Yang Chen would not leave any route for retreat and directly chop off the young master's head? Looking at the head from which blood was still dripping, that owner had almost gone into a daze. You killed the young master. That master was pointing his finger towards Yang Chen and said this in a tone that clearly expressed that he did not dare to believe what he had just seen. His expression had also turned similar to his tone, not daring to believe what had happened. Now you can tell me if your master will be willing to spend a price to redeem his favorite son's head. But Yang Chen slowly spoke, raising the head in the face of that master. You will surely die. That master's eyes had already started to turn blurry. That young master's head was chopped off in front of him. This was already something which escaped the range of things that he could believe. In shock, he couldn't even say anything else. How can you still call yourself a cultivator with such small guts? Yang Chen looked at that master who had nearly gone insane and spoke with disdain. Shaking his head, he slashed his sword at his head. For every grievance someone is responsible and for every debt there is a debtor. Since you offered that information about my master, you must also die. Saying his customary phrase, he chopped off the master's head. Afterwards he froze both severed heads and placed them in his Qianqin pouch. Senior, here is your body dividing secret. After the matter was finished, Yang Chen walked to the tree demon and, using the beast taming secrets, he immediately delivered the chance of the body dividing secrets to the tree demon using his spiritual consciousness. The old tree demon, who had taken the form of an old man, nodded with a smile. Then, without saying anything else, he closed his eyes and began to comprehend. Yang Chen also did not say anything and began to wait, calmly looking at that tree demon comprehending it. After a good while, that tree demon opened his pale yellow eyes and took a deep sigh. Wonderful. What a treasure. Since Senior is happy, it is all good. Yang Chen replied with a smile and then asked. I wonder if Senior has any future plans. Plans? That old tree demon chuckled. To look for a secure place to plant this main root. Afterwards I'll wait for the yin fire tribulation. I have already suppressed the yin fire tribulation for countless years, again and again. Fortunately, with your body dividing secrets, if I fail, only this incarnation will be destroyed and I will still be able to live. Hearing these words, everyone was greatly startled. Burning by the yin fire was one of the tribulations which Breathtaking stage had to experience. That old tree had surprisingly been suppressing it. What level of cultivation did he even have? Apart from Yang Chen, nobody present had heard of such a fierce person. The later words of that old tree demon expressed his gratitude towards Yang Chen. With this body dividing secrets, the yin fire tribulation would be shifted completely to his other body and the main part would not be injured, so the tribulation could be passed easily. Yang Chen's words were very clear. This technique was especially for plant-attributed demon beasts to pass their yin fire tribulation. No matter how much the other people envied it, for them it was not very useful. Shikui and Xia were still fine, but Scarface couldn't conceal the astonishment in his eyes. I wonder if Senior is interested in moving to this junior's sect. Yang Chen tried to entice him with a smile. This junior is owner of the second Fierce Yang courtyard, which has abundant spirit power, where safety is also ensured. If Senior is willing, my entire sect, from top to bottom, will come out to welcome Senior. Haha, you junior, in the beginning I thought that you were a small calf, but only now I know you are not. That old demon spilled Yang Chen's intentions with a smile. That young meadow viper and sand scorpion have told me everything. Aren't you intending to make me enter that eccentric people hall of yours? If Senior is willing, then you naturally may enter. Yang Chen smiled and without showing the slightest embarrassment over having his intentions revealed he said. If you are not willing, then you can come as a guest and stay in my courtyard as long as you want. Aren't you worried that other people will complain? That old man smoothed out his beard and said with a smile. I have heard that a lot of people are coveting that courtyard of yours. Seeing that Shikui and Xia had completely sold him out, Yang Chen fiercely glared at these two. Although they were at the Yuning stage, under Yang Chen's glare, they still lowered their heads, feeling guilty. Actually, both of them had wanted to get the tree demon to join the Pure Yang Palace, because if that happened, their eccentric hall strength would increase by leaps and bounds, and they would have even greater face in the sect. These two, who had already tasted the feeling of being in an organization, absolutely didn't want to return to living lonely. It is my courtyard, what can anyone else say? Yang Chen once again turned to that old tree demon and said with a smile. If Senior really doesn't want to come in contact with those people, then please feel free to just plant your main body there. Don't tell me that you think other people would even say a thing about the type of plants I grow in my courtyard. Although his tone was slightly disrespectful, his meaning was completely clear. With the cultivation of the old tree demon, if he didn't become arrogant at the courtyard after passing the yin fire tribulation, even the palace master wouldn't be able to discover it. The clear proof of that would be that the old tree demon had not been discovered at the greater mountains for so long. After all, not everyone had a spiritual awareness as sharp as Yang Chen. Fine then. This old man will bother you as a guest for a few days. That eccentric hall, if you all think that there is some necessity, then this old man will immediately enter. That old demon nodded with a chuckle and agreed to Yang Chen's request, but he also didn't hide his desires. This old man has always thought that you have something which will allow this old man to ascend. That thing is very close, but I couldn't find it. So following you will also be a good opportunity. Hearing that old demon's words, Yang Chen immediately thought of the Penglai divine wood branches planted in the medicine garden. Could it be that the old demon was talking about them? Perhaps because the old tree demon had entered the domed palace hall, he was able to sense the Penglai divine wood nearby. After all, the domed palace hall was the lid of the medicine garden's bottle, both were parts of a whole, so the old tree demon saying that it was nearby made complete sense. If he was really talking about the Penglai divine wood branches, then Yang Chen had to admire the sharpness of the old tree demon. But thinking about this, it seemed to be normal. After all, the old tree demon possessed the wisdom of countless years. His spiritual awareness was extremely formidable. In his entire past life, Yang Chen had barely met any experts of the mortal world, so it was not strange that someone could sense them. But Yang Chen would certainly not hand that thing to the old tree demon, not to mention that he didn't even know what kind of trouble this old tree demon with such a high cultivation could cause. Until now, the old tree demon hadn't done anything, but he wanted to obtain a spirit-grade object like Penglai divine wood. That really would be too easy for him. Even the body-dividing secrets were only given to him after he had settled the matter of the auction house. Yang Chen certainly did not want to make an example, showing that he was a person from whom things could be obtained without any work. He had finally taken his revenge and also obtained the heaven measuring ruler as well as a Killin's horn while retrieving his master's red sun metal soul and roping in a powerful expert, not to mention that the three people from the Pure Yang Palace had obtained around 70 or so Qiankan pouches, which was almost 3/4 of the harvest from Haoyi Manor. Their profits were enormous. Which could make anyone drool. The circumstances of Scarface were unique and he could be said to have committed many evils previously. Although his cultivation was formidable, Yang Chen hadn't invited him. The Pure Yang Palace surely didn't want an expert who had such a complicated background, even if he was at the late Yuning stage. But Scarface had already agreed to go to the Pure Yang Palace to apologize to Gao Yu and had moreover agreed to do 3 things for her. So after returning, Yang Chen would have to find another way to settle him. The party again started their journey and the goal this time was the Pure Yang Palace at Myking Mountain. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 157 Master has still not woken up. Everyone was traveling within Yang Chen's flying shuttle, flying very quickly. From the Devil Flame Valley to the edge of the Greater Mountains, and then rushing from the edge of the Greater Mountains to the Pure Yang Palace, Yang Chen only needed a fortnight's time. The speed of the flying shuttle was very quick, which even startled Scarface and that old tree demon. Despite being amazed, that Kasha tree demon didn't let any surprise appear on his face, but Scarface wasn't the same. What a fast flying shuttle Yang Chen possessed. If at that time Gao Yu had it, then Scarface and his people would not be able to catch her. Scarface really couldn't imagine how big the strength of the Pure Yang Palace was. But Yang Chen did not care about this. He had spent half a year in the Greater Mountains, of which almost 5 months were spent on the journey. The time to handle these affairs was not very long. At that moment, he was very anxious, thinking about if Gao Yu's injury had healed or not and had if it affected her cultivation. Normally, since the Great Master was taking care of Gao Yu while returning, Yang Chen should have been relieved, but he had a bad premonition. Only, he could not return immediately and had to take care of these matters. The first stop was naturally the second Fierce Yang courtyard. Just as they reached there, everyone sensed the abundant spirit power, which was almost at the point of solidifying and successively took a deep breath. No wonder Yang Chen was saying that the spirit power at his place was abundant. After all, he really had a place with such a profound spirit vein. That old tree demon continued to inhale long breaths, as if trying to absorb all of the vaporized spirit power in the air, and kept praising. What a good place. What a good location. Although Scarface didn't say anything, his eyes revealed a sense of deep regret, which he couldn't conceal. Big sex really were big sex. Even their cultivation regions were so luxuriant. Shikui and Xie had their own places. After arriving, they immediately returned to their own courtyard. The Kasha tree demon and Scarface were visitors, so Yang Chen led them to his room so that they could take a rest for some time and afterwards he led Scarface towards Gao Yu's room while letting the old tree demon stay to get familiar with the environment. The second Fierce Yang courtyard was not very big. They reached Gao Yu's courtyard within a moment, but Yang Chen was astonished to see that the Great Master was still at Gao Yu's side. Looking at his Great Master, Wang Yong, Yang Chen's heart began to beat loudly. Could it be his master's injury had worsened? He hastily stepped forward to perform his salutations and inquire about master's injuries. Who is this? Wang Yang didn't reply to Yang Chen's question at first and instead asked about Scarface, wrinkling his brows. Scarface hadn't concealed his cultivation at this moment, so when he displayed his formidable strength of the late Yuning stage, Wang Yang became vigilant. If Yang Chen was not the one who had led him here, Wang Yang would in all likelihood have already began to interrogate him. He is Scarface, he had chased master, working under someone's order, and had secretly allowed her to escape alive. Yang Chen didn't hide anything and immediately answered. Hearing that Scarface was the one who had chased Gao Yu, Wang Yang's once again creased his brows, but then he immediately relaxed them. With this kind of cultivation, if Scarface had wanted to kill Gao Yu, then he would have already killed her and would not have only injured her, allowing her to be saved. Generally speaking, it could be considered as a favor from Scarface for saving Gao Yu's life. When he thought of this, Wang Yang's complexion brightened again. What is fellow Taoist Scarface doing here? For the time being, Wang Yang didn't speak with Yang Chen regarding Gao Yu and instead received his guest first. Regardless of anything, Scarface was still a guest, so Wang Yang also adopted the attitude of a host. Senior Scarface has come to apologize to master. Before Scarface could open his mouth, Yang Chen took the place of Scarface to explain everything. Senior Scarface has been feeling guilty since he had injured master by mistake and is determined to apologize to master personally. On one side was Yang Chen talking, and on the other there was Scarface, nodding. Seeing this kind of behavior, Wang Yang couldn't say anything and had to nod, but he immediately stopped him. Fellow Taoist Scarface, the wound on my disciple is rather deep and she still hasn't woken up. I am afraid that fellow Taoist won't be able to fulfill your desire at this time. Hearing this, Yang Chen was startled and, not caring about Scarface or Wang Yang anymore, directly rushed towards Gao Yu's room. Wang Yang understood Yang Chen's impatience and didn't say anything, but instead extended his hand towards Scarface and invited him. I request fellow Taoist to come with me, I just had some issues which I wanted to discuss with fellow Taoist. My Pure Yang Palace is simple and crude, so please forgive us for not serving you properly. When Scarface heard that Yang Chen's master still hadn't woken up, he knew it meant trouble. He estimated that Wang Yang wanted to ask questions about the technique he had used at that time and other things, but he also could not decline, so he followed Wang Yang to the guest room. Once Yang Chen entered Gao Yu's room, he immediately saw Gao Yu's female servants waiting on her. Furthermore, Gao Yu, the person herself, was lying down on the couch, motionlessly, as if she was asleep. Seeing Yang Chen enter, few female servants hurriedly saluted him. But Yang Chen did not pay much attention to it, hurriedly nodded and directly walked to Gao Yu's bedside and extended his hand to touch her vein, and he began to check carefully. Her pulse was steady and did not resemble that of an injured person in the least. After checking, he also slightly relaxed. Apparently, those serious injuries she had received that day had recovered at least on the surface. Senior disciple Yang, master's inner injuries have already been healed. One servant on the side hastily told Yang Chen. But it seems as if her spiritual awareness has been heavily injured and had moreover been excessively consumed, such is why she had been unable to wake up until today. Great Master Wang has tried all kinds of methods and asked various people, but he was still unable to do anything. Yang Chen's brows creased again. He released his spiritual awareness and began to pass it into Gao Yu's body through his hand, directly entering her spirit sea. Once he made contact with Gao Yu's spirit sea, Yang Chen couldn't help but immediately take a deep breath. The spirit sea of ordinary cultivators was supposed to be like a calm lake, but Gao Yu's spirit sea was like an active volcano, wreaking havoc everywhere. Her weak spiritual awareness rolling around in Gao Yu's spirit sea basically didn't seem able to calm down anytime soon. Not only this, if it had just been wreaking havoc, then her spiritual awareness would have already calmed down and started to recover, but the weak spiritual awareness was currently still rebelling and attacking from all sides, for some unknown reason, so it would indeed be a strange occurrence if Gao Yu woke up. On that day, Gao Yu had sustained severe losses and had become extremely weak, but later she had still forcefully launched the warning signal and sent it to the Pure Yang Palace, which had put her spiritual awareness in such a situation, like a lamp whose oil had dried up. If Yang Chen had not given her that Lingzi Jaya Kuro pill at that time, the circumstances would have been even more serious. Seeing the situation, Yang Chen's heart started to break into pieces. When he could not deal with it anymore, he quickly instructed the few female servants. Prepare a room for her where no one can disturb master. It must have abundant spirit power, I will heal master. Hearing Yang Chen's instructions, the female servants were exalted and asked Yang Chen in a cheerful tone. Senior disciple Yang, do you have a way? I can only try. Yang Chen didn't have complete confidence, but at this moment, Yang Chen could not delay any longer and had to try, in spite of the danger. The room was quickly made available. Almost every courtyard had a room that could be used for seclusion. It could also be used for cultivating normally, and when required it could be used to unleash a spell formation, and finally it was still a place to enter seclusion. Those few female servants only had to quickly tidy up things there and come out. The sound of activity on the side immediately alarmed Wang Yang, who had just understood the circumstances. Anxious for his lovely disciple, he forgot all of his manners and hastily rushed there and asked impatiently. "What is going on here?" Yang Chen, who was carrying Gao Yu in her hands, walking towards the room, quickly answered upon seeing Wang Yang. "The treatment of master cannot be delayed any longer. Disciple must test something to check if she can be rescued or not." Gao Yu was in an extremely dangerous situation right now. That spiritual awareness wandering around had begun to weaken even more and was almost at the point of exhaustion. If this continued, Gao Yu would sink into eternal rest due to exhaustion of her spiritual awareness in a short while. Even if she didn't die, she would become similar to Mo Qian, just a body without any consciousness. Even the chances of that were still low, death was still a highly probable outcome. Yang Chen was very clear about this fact. Apparently Wang Yang also understood this. But the palace master of Puryang Palace and the other elders had also come to check her and weren't able to find a way. They had also consulted experts of other sects, but they were also unable to help. Everyone could only look helplessly while Gao Yu became weaker and weaker, her spiritual awareness starting to drain bit by bit. How could Yang Chen allow this to happen? After his rebirth he had come back precisely to stop the tragedy of his previous life from happening and to ensure that his master had a safe and happy life, but right now his master had surprisingly suffered such a serious injury. How could Yang Chen watch, like a bystander? There still wasn't any medicine in the mortal world which could heal spiritual awareness, so he had to use some other method. The matter was extremely urgent and Yang Chen could not care about anyone else right now and immediately entered the cultivation room, carrying Gao Yu. Although he didn't know any method to treat weakening spiritual awareness, Yang Chen remembered a type of cultivation method known as Profound Yin and Yang Heart Sutra. The Profound Yin and Yang Heart Sutra allowed two people to cultivate together, drawing support from one's partner's spiritual awareness. Both could strengthen the cultivation of their spiritual awareness by one step. It could be simply explained in a single point. This was a kind of method for pair cultivation. Initially Yang Chen hadn't thought that he would have to conduct pair cultivation with Gao Yu, even if it was a pair cultivation of spiritual awareness, but he couldn't tolerate Gao Yu's condition, and to save her life, he would use everything he could. Since the master's consciousness was totally dormant right now, Yang Chen arranged Gao Yu in proper posture for cultivation and then himself sat behind her, embracing her body from behind so that she wouldn't fall down. After he had prepared everything properly, Yang Chen touched his forehead on the back of Gao Yu's head and began the Profound Yin and Yang Heart Sutra. Gao Yu's final memories were of herself being chased by a group of people, then she began to panic over choosing a path to flee and finally chose a tunnel. Then she launched the warning magic tool and immediately lost consciousness. Currently, Gao Yu had finally begun to sense that someone had come to save her, only, she was extremely weak and couldn't even open her eyes to see who it was. In a normal day, she could easily sense who it was, even without opening her eyes, which now seemed to be heavier than 30,000 caddies. She was extremely shocked at the fact that she could not even sense her own body. She felt as light as a feather, as if she was floating on air, but she could not sense anything in her surroundings. She felt extremely tired and very hard-pressed, as if she was near death. This kind of situation lasted for an extremely long time when Gao Yu suddenly felt as if her body had become warm, like she was being hugged by someone and felt very comfortable. An warm current, which made her feel very comfortable, started to flow from the top of her head, increasing her strength by much, but she was still extremely weak. She could however already sense many things. Her body seemed to be in a terrible mess, tossing everywhere, without stopping. But there was that current passing from the top of her head. She could neither see nor hear, but she could sense that current was nursing down her body, knocking into everything and beginning to comfort it. Furthermore, Gao Yu herself felt a joy which couldn't be described in words, being passed from every direction into her consciousness. This process also lasted for an extremely long time, but Gao Yu knew that the person who had assisted her would be extremely tired and had done all of this without resting. But she didn't know who it was that had helped her so much. Although she didn't know who it was, Gao Yu was extremely grateful. Only when Gao Yu obtained more and more strength did she discover that she was within her spirit sea. That mess was not her body, but her spiritual awareness. She wanted to see who had assisted and taken care of her, but it was impossible for her at the moment. The only certain thing was that, when this person was assisting her, she felt very comfortable, very warm and completely safe. Apparently this person was someone who she completely trusted and she completely relaxed. Her chaotic spiritual awareness had finally calmed down, and Gao Yu could finally control her spiritual awareness, but her spiritual awareness, which used to be extremely formidable, was very weak at the moment. It didn't even have the strength to move around. Master, with this cultivation method that I am giving you, you will be able to recover very rapidly. A thought suddenly appeared in Gao Yu's brain, which made it clear that the person who had been helping her was Yang Chen. She was extremely confused, but Gao Yu knew that this was not the time to investigate and immediately began to research the cultivation method which Yang Chen had passed on to her. That cultivation method was very complicated, but Yang Chen's explanation was very detailed, so Gao Yu quickly understood the crux of it and began to move her extremely weak spiritual awareness, little by little. Basically, the pair cultivation method had a higher efficiency than if a single person was cultivating, so Gao Yu's recovery speed began to accelerate. As they became more proficient in the cultivation method, Yang Chen's spiritual awareness began to blend with Gao Yu's spiritual awareness to the point where his consciousness was within hers and her consciousness was in his. And that fusion gave Gao Yu never-ending joy. But Gao Yu was also exceptionally shocked to discover that her disciple, who was just at the initial foundation stage, had a spiritual awareness even stronger than a peak Jidan stage expert. Yang Chen's cultivation method was extremely formidable, and very soon Gao Yu discovered that her spiritual awareness had recovered, but the situation was not over yet. After her recovery, the spiritual awareness began to strengthen. It stopped only after reaching the late Jidan stage. But Gao Yu also sensed that Yang Chen's spiritual awareness had reduced by much because of her own spiritual awareness being strengthened. This made her very worried. Only after Yang Chen reminded her through his thoughts did Gao Yu stop cultivating. Her spiritual awareness had been restored to its original state, and Gao Yu immediately became clear-headed, but she was immediately embarrassed to discover that she was cozily leaning into Yang Chen's bosom, while both of Yang Chen's hands were tightly holding her waist, with his forehead still touching the back of her head. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 158. Leave it to me. Although she knew that Yang Chen had done this for the sake of healing her, Gao Yu's face still turned red. Especially when she sensed Yang Chen's powerful arms around her slim waist, that powerful sensation was making her go weak. She still remembered that joyful sensation while she was unconscious. Gao Yu sighed, thinking. We are master and disciple. But that sensation of infatuation made her lean slightly against Yang Chen's cheek after she removed her forehead and leaned over slightly. After enjoying a few seconds of warmth, Gao Yu suddenly asked. Where are we? Naturally, Yang Chen had also enjoyed that experience of using pair cultivation for cultivating their spirit awareness. He possessed those unclear emotions towards his master from the beginning, and now he tasted that proximity, so after waking up, he found that he did not want to remove his hands from his master's waist. If it was possible, Yang Chen wanted to remain like this forever, but he knew that it was impossible. When Gao Yu opened her mouth, Yang Chen unwillingly released her. This is the second fierce Yang courtyard. Yang Chen replied. You have already returned home. Oh. Feeling slight surprise, Gao Yu hatefully moved her body forward slightly, separating herself from Yang Chen's hug. Then, as if she had suddenly remembered something, she asked. What's the matter with your spiritual awareness? Hasn't it decreased a lot? Often, when cultivating as a pair, one would only use the other's strength to make up for one's own weak points, so that they could progress together. Pair cultivation of spiritual awareness was the same. If the gap between the spiritual awareness of two people was too large, then one of them had to supplement the other. Gao Yu's spiritual awareness had risen greatly, so naturally Yang Chen's would have decreased. Moreover, Yang Chen had previously assisted Gao Yu by arranging the chaotic spiritual awareness, for which he had to spend a large amount of his own spiritual awareness. Yang Chen did not care much about it, as long as his master could recover, let alone losing some of it. Even if all of his spiritual awareness was entirely destroyed, Yang Chen wouldn't care. In any case, with a heaven-defying cultivation method like the three purity secrets, even starting from the beginning wouldn't make much of a difference. But Gao Yu's question suddenly reminded Yang Chen of something, so Yang Chen hastily asked. Master, inspect your spiritual awareness and body and check if you have any problems. Seeing Yang Chen being so impatient despite being anxious herself, Gao Yu calmed her heart down and entered her spirit sea to inspect her condition. Although it wasn't very urgent, after taking a look, Gao Yu jumped in astonishment. Initially her spirit sea had been completely empty, but currently it was clearly divided into two layers, one of fire and one of water. Moreover, the range of the spirit sea had also expanded by a lot during the time she couldn't sense anything. Her spirit sea had greatly increased and her spiritual awareness had suddenly expanded. She felt clearly that this would only have benefits and no downsides. What made Gao Yu suspicious was that her spirit sea had two levels. The layer of fire was still understandable, but what was the meaning of that water layer? When she thought of the fact that Yang Chen had told her to cultivate water-attributed secrets, she couldn't help but feel even more baffled. For some reason her cultivation base was not disturbed, but since she hadn't eaten anything for a long time, she felt pretty tired. This could be settled very easily. As long as she circulated her cultivation once and absorbed enough spirit power, it would not be a problem. Currently, she could not find any problems with herself. The only thing that was bothering her was if it would be a problem since Yang Chen had lost such a large amount of spiritual awareness. Turning around, she carefully sized up Yang Chen. He didn't seem to have any changes, only his face was a little pale. But she already knew that it was definitely from excessive wear and tear while he was nursing her spiritual awareness. Still, seeing Yang Chen's conditions, she felt so much pain that she wanted to start crying. Unable to restrain her emotions, she reached out her hand and gently caressed Yang Chen's pale face, lightly kneading it. "It's nothing, master." Yang Chen was almost unable to control himself. Finally, still resisting his excitement, he said very slowly. "You have already returned to the second Fierce Yang courtyard. I have already killed all of the people who tried to kill you, and that thing you were robbed of, I have already gotten it back. I also brought one of the culprits here, would you like to see him?" Strictly speaking, when she became aware that Yang Chen had treated her injured spiritual awareness, she was astonished, but after hearing what he had done, rather than being astonished, she was so frightened that her mouth had opened involuntarily. Bao Yu had personally experienced the attack, so she perfectly knew the strength of those people. Even she, an initial Jidan expert, couldn't just do anything she wanted in the Greater Mountains. How could an initial foundation stage disciple like Yang Chen enter the Greater Mountains and even kill those people? But when he showed them those heads one by one. "This is Hao Yi Manor's young master's head, this one is of that young master and the master of the auction house of the Devil Flame Valley." She started to believe him. When he also told her about the locations of these people correctly, Gao Yu had no option other than to believe that her disciple, Yang Chen, who was just at the initial foundation stage, had really taken her revenge. These two had been in that cultivation room for a long time, and during this time the great master Wang Yong and the others who had been standing outside were very worried. Only when Yang Chen had told her the events that had happened did he recall that they also had to go out. "Master, do not tell anyone about that cultivation matter." Before going out, Yang Chen warned Gao Yu. There were some things which could not be leaked and neither could they be used for everyone. Bao Yu raised her head and looked at Yang Chen. Seeing his serious expression, she could not help but nod. Yang Chen had many things on him which couldn't be explained, so having such a cultivation method was not too strange for Yang Chen. Wang Yong had been worried for a long time. His disciple and grand disciple had been in the cultivation room for almost 4 months now, without any news. If Yang Chen had not warned them repeatedly that they could not be disturbed under any circumstances, he would have already rushed in. Fortunately, he could still sense that the two people inside were safe, otherwise, Wang Yong would have already entered. Just when Wang Yong was worrying, the door of the cultivation room suddenly opened and Yang Chen and Gao Yu, one in front, the other in the back, came out. Looking at Gao Yu walking like a normal person, Wang Yong almost couldn't control his excitement. In the end, being a Yuning stage expert, he forcibly resisted rushing forward and checking her. But his face still revealed an expression of gratitude for a moment. When all of the elders of the Pure Yang Palace were helpless and even the healing experts of other sects couldn't do anything, his own grand disciple had brought back his disciple healthy and active within 4 months by himself. This was simply a miracle. "Good, you don't need to say anything. I know everything now." Wang Yong interrupted Yang Chen before he could open his mouth. "What you have is very good, if we have any hatred, we certainly must take revenge. Those people must be killed, if someone looks for you now, my Pure Yang Palace will deal with it." After talking with Scarface, Wang Yong found out about everything that Yang Chen had done. Originally, he himself wanted to make a trip when Gao Yu had become healed, but Yang Chen had done everything very proficiently. Even if he had went there, he also wouldn't have been able to take care of it that proficiently, it was even possible that he would have done worse. Annihilating the Hao Yi Manor, which had almost 1,000 people, making friends and exploiting a formidable person like Scarface, none of these things were something which could be done by a simple foundation stage disciple. But Yang Chen had done so many miraculous things at the Pure Yang Palace to this date that Wang Yong wasn't surprised when he heard of these events and only thought that this was how it should have been. The power of habit could be seen clearly when even a Yuning expert could think of such miraculous acts as just normal for a foundation stage disciple like Yang Chen. Scarface hadn't spoken in much detail about the events. At least those 5 Jidan stage females and that Yuning stage expert hadn't appeared again, and Yang Chen had also warned him, therefore he only told the part of the story related to him. Even a powerful expert like that tree demon was waiting for Yang Chen to come and talk personally. As for why Scarface had been waiting there all along, it was because he had promised to Yang Chen that he would apologize to Gao Yu, and to compensate for those injuries, he would do 3 things for her. These things hadn't been achieved, but Yang Chen had entered the cultivation room with Gao Yu, so he could only wait there. Scarface couldn't do anything but wait. Other people may not know, but Scarface clearly knew that the old Kasha tree demon in Yang Chen's room was a lot more frightening than anything else. Since he had promised to take care of Yang Chen's matter, leaving aside whether Yang Chen would come out of the cultivation room or not, or whether he would have a heart's devil in the future or not, being alone with that old tree demon would certainly not let him get comfortable. He however knew that the old tree demon had been requested by Yang Chen, moreover he had also obtained a lot of benefits from Yang Chen and could thus immediately pass the yin fire tribulation and enter the daching stage. If he offended that old tree demon, even by mistake, he could be killed anywhere, let alone Yang Chen's sect, without a care. Upon seeing Gao Yu, the woman whom he had chased and had intended to let live, how could he have any thoughts of thanking her at that moment? So without saying anything, he stepped forward and prostrated himself. Since he had already intended to apologize, why not do it appropriately? Fellow Taoist Gao, myself has injured fellow Taoist Gao, I beg for forgiveness. After prostrating himself, Scarface knocked his head on the ground and loudly spoke. Gao Yu clearly recognized Scarface. Among those people who had chased her, Scarface was in the front. She had heard about Scarface's situation from Yang Chen, that he had let her go and moreover secretly assisted her in fleeing. Gao Yu had also vaguely sensed something like that at that time. Since the situation was like that, Gao Yu was feeling ashamed to accept Scarface's apology, so she hastily helped Scarface up with her hands. One was expressing gratitude, the other was apologizing, so it could be considered that the situation was to everyone's satisfaction. Gao Yu hadn't taken Scarface doing 3 things for her seriously, but Scarface was earnest. Having no other option, Gao Yu could only store the 3 requests for a day when she would need them. Good, Yang Chen, you go and take care of your visitors. Wang Yong instructed Yang Chen, and his voice contained a trace of complaint. You have already thrown away your guests without taking care of them for months, what kind of host are you? Although he was berating him, Wang Yong certainly did not have that kind of opinion of Yang Chen. These few months, he had been treating Gao Yu, his own disciple. While still at the foundation stage, he had saved a person whose spiritual awareness had almost dissipated, so if not satisfaction, what other thoughts could Wang Yong have? Yang Chen also knew that, in order to save his master, he had neglected Scarface and the old tree demon, for which he felt very apologetic, so he took Scarface back to his courtyard at once and put his heart to entertaining them. That old tree demon hadn't been walking around in his courtyard, he was satisfied in enjoying and nourishing himself in the abundant spirit power of the vein in the courtyard, with an expression of content. That old tree demon did not have the same senile appearance he had previously. His appearance transforming secrets had possibly become even more profound, or maybe because he had obtained the nourishment of such abundant spirit power, he looked a lot younger. Who are you? I don't think you are the person I was waiting for. Once Yang Chen entered the room, the old tree demon immediately made fun of him. Sorry for neglecting you, senior. Yang Chen sincerely asked for forgiveness, and after seating Scarface and the old tree demon, he asked for Scarface's future plans. Plans? Scarface shook his head. The only purpose of my life was to take the revenge. Since I have taken my revenge, only some trivial matters are left. Naturally, I remember your master's matter. But I don't know what should I do now. There are many things. You could try cultivating and attacking the heavenly law, then see the world after ascending. That old tree demon clearly knew more than Scarface and also had higher goals. That is one of the 2 possibilities. Scarface faintly nodded, but then he shook his head again. I have already become used to life in the greater mountains. I am not accustomed to being comfortable every day. I don't even have an urge to cultivate. In fact, if you want, you can cure the scar on your face and get a new face and then go back to the greater mountains. Yang Chen smiled. Or perhaps some other region where you can get the same adventurous life as the greater mountains. You could maybe also go to the side of the greater mountains where the demon beasts live. With your strength you would have no problems. Or if you want, you can go to the region of those devil cultivators, that place is also good. His face had to be changed. Although Yang Chen didn't know it clearly, since the owner of the auction house was someone of whom the master was so afraid of that he was ready to give up his life to protect that young master, it clearly showed many things. If Scarface, who had such a prominent feature, was researched by people, it would certainly not be good. Scarface was fond of taking risks and provoking people. Hearing Yang Chen's words, a shine passed through his face, but then he immediately turned gloomy. Change my face. Easier said than done. How difficult could it be? Yang Chen said with a smile. Isn't it just a matter of getting a face-changing pill? Simple. Scarface bitterly laughed. That face-changing pill, even that traitor of your sect, Chu Hang, couldn't get it at the greatest heaven sect, and you say it's simple. While staying at the Pure Yang Palace for 4 months, Scarface had learned a lot of things, including some of Yang Chen's past feats, therefore he also knew about Chu Hang's matter. The greatest heaven sect is the greatest heaven sect, I am me. Yang Chen disdainfully said. Forget others, I am a third-grade pill master at my age, leave your face-changing pill to me. Really? Scarface was exalted. The most troublesome issue was so easily resolved that he couldn't even believe that all of this was true. While Scarface and Yang Chen were talking, that old tree demon hadn't even said a word. But the smile on his face had become brighter and brighter. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 159. None of you can be the judge of that. What do you want? Scarface knew that Yang Chen would certainly not refine that face-changing pill for him without any good cause. That pill, which could even cause an inconvenience to the greatest heaven sect, couldn't be produced so easily. If you go to the area of demon beasts or devil cultivators and find some materials, I will have the right to purchase it first. Yang Chen's request was not that difficult. Actually, he provided Scarface with a way to make money. Those places are rich in natural resources, so you can get a group of people and get some commissions from the sects here and then trade the things you find at those places. Yang Chen said a few more enticing words. In any case, you like to run around, so maybe it will increase your knowledge and experience and at the same time, earn you some wealth. Hearing this, Scarface was extremely delighted. A person like him, who only lived for revenge, only needed to be given a desire and he could continue his life. As for a higher cultivation, he hadn't thought of it before, but maybe in the future he would be able to find a direction. Yes, I agree. After thinking for a moment, Scarface declared this without any hesitation. Right now, Scarface could definitely take a stroll through markets where cultivators gather in large numbers and take a look at which things the greater mountains had and which were scarce so that, when the time came, he could take some things with him and trade them to earn a large amount of spirit stones. Scarface also wasn't too reluctant to leave, and after having this idea, he immediately said his farewells to Yang Chen. He was a little ill at ease there. Although he was considered a guest, he was only there to apologize to Gao Yu, so he wasn't very comfortable. Departing as soon as possible was a kind of release for him. That old tree demon also didn't urge him to stay, and as soon as Yang Chen had sent off Scarface, he asked, with a face full of smiles. You have enticed this distracted youngster to run errands around here and there for you, what are you attempting to do? I can't hide anything from you, old man, huh? Yang Chen smiled. I am not attempting anything, I am just trying to create a way for the sect to make money. In fact, Scarface himself clearly knows it, but he still hadn't thought about the future clearly. That old tree demon had lived for countless years, although he hadn't communicated much with people, he had still faced countless hardships at the greater mountains. With an incisive gaze, he nodded his head, without saying anything. You're correct in this case. First, I want to borrow your place to live temporarily and will enter your sect's eccentric hall. That old tree demon finally nodded. I intend to pass my yin fire tribulation in a few days. Do you have any close friends who want to watch? The yin fire tribulation of a PQing stage expert was an opportunity which one couldn't find by searching. Last time when he was at the Clear Sky sect, he had allowed a group of people to see the yin fire tribulation of while wanting. He was aware that his own sect's experts were somewhat unworthy, but having such an opportunity now wasn't it just a large meat pie which the heavens had thrown into his lap. How could Yang Chen reject such a request? After a night had passed, Yang Chen went to see the main body of the old tree demon, but despite knowing that the old tree demon was there, he still was intimidated by the old tree demon's concealing trick. Within Yang Chen's courtyard, behind the house, many fist-thick cassia trees, almost at the height of 2 people, with thin branches and newly grown leaves, could be seen. They were basically newly grown saplings. Anyone looking at it would never think this was the old tree demon who had been cultivating for countless years. Apparently, under the nourishment of this abundant spirit power, that old tree demon's appearance-transforming secrets had almost been perfected. Just this trick was sufficient to make people not pay attention to his main body. Who would care about a few little tree saplings which a housemaster had planted to decorate his courtyard? Only if an enemy attacked and demanded to raise the entire courtyard could he discover the anomaly of the old tree demon. But in this life, having Yang Chen, how could the Pure Yang Palace repeat the same mistake and get exterminated? Moreover, there was one more benefit of having the old tree demon occupy Yang Chen's backyard. That region would be the most fortified region of the Pure Yang Palace from then on. Moreover, with his roots, the old tree demon could monitor the entire Pure Yang Palace. Furthermore, which place could be safer than the one guarded by a defying stage expert? The matter of the old tree demon settling down still hadn't been reported to the palace master, but before he could do that, his servant, Ting Yuan, had come running to Yang Chen, saying that the palace master and the other hall masters were waiting at the Nine Earth Manor and had asked Yang Chen to come see them. Yang Chen had arranged for Ting Yuan to look after the Nine Earth Manor and provide guidance to the disciples, together with Shangyu and Feng. But she had come running to him with an anxious expression on her face. This made him very confused. Especially, her words that not just the palace master but also the other hall masters were there was completely out of his expectations. How many other hall masters are there? Yang Chen asked, feeling confused. All of them. Ting Yuan replied with confidence, immediately continuing. It seems that they were all brought in by the substitute hall master of the Luminous Moon Hall, Song Hang. Since Yang Chen wasn't very friendly with the people of Luminous Moon Hall, Ting Yuan directly said his name without any fear. Young master, they all seem to be planning to condemn you. Ting Yuan had watched every detail attentively and had also seen the behavior of these people, especially Song Hang. Apparently, as soon as they heard that young master had come out of the cultivation room, they immediately assembled there. There is no harm in going. Yang Chen had spent much effort on the outer disciples, so if someone wanted to quarrel about them without any previous offense, Yang Chen would certainly not avoid it. Let's go and take a look. The palace master is also there and we cannot let that old man wait for long. Using his flying sword, Yang Chen brought Ting Yuan to the Nine Earth Manor within an hour. The party of the palace master was present in the main hall of the Nine Earth Manor. Disciple Yang Chen greets palace master and all of the uncle masters. Without saying anything else, Yang Chen first greeted the palace master and then the other hall masters successively. They were all his elders, so even if he didn't want to, Yang Chen had to greet them according to the rules. Apart from one or two people, all returned his greetings with a smile. Good that you have come out of the cultivation room. The palace master spoke to Yang Chen with smile. I have heard that your master is doing good now, good work. This attitude of the palace master made him feel relaxed and also gratified. Yang Chen had entered seclusion to treat Gao Yu. If the palace master had ordered him, regardless of anything, to come out and receive his punishment, that would indeed have made all of the disciples within the sect terrified. But the palace master had asked out of genuine concern, yet not all people could have similar concerns. At least the substitute hall master of the Luminous Moon Hall was one such person. After the palace master had finished talking and before anyone else could open their mouth, Song Hang slowly asked. Yang Chen, do you know your crimes? Luminous Moon Hall's hallmaster, Liang Mingxiao, was still meditating and examining his conscience because not only was his disciple Chu Heng a sect traitor while dealing with Yang Chen, he had also unconsciously served as an accomplice, therefore he was punished by the palace master to temper himself. Luminous Moon Hall's current hallmaster was Song Hang, who had been acting as a substitute hallmaster. Yang Chen didn't find the people of the Luminous Moon Halls pleasing to the eye, but they also didn't like Yang Chen very much because of the matter with Liang Mingxiao. This also had some relation with the affairs of Chu Heng, as well as the second Fierce Yang courtyard. At that time, Liang Mingxiao wanted to strip Yang Chen of the second Fierce Yang courtyard and take it for himself, but he was suppressed by the palace master. The result was that all of the elders of the Pure Yang Palace, including the palace master, had a room there. Even the other halls masters had rooms there, only Liang Mingxiao didn't. Yang Chen certainly wasn't a person who would return good for evil, and since they had wanted to seize his property, he wouldn't let them enjoy the benefits of his property. This kind of thing wasn't rare in the cultivation world, therefore no one in the Pure Yang Palace cared much about it. But in the eyes of the people of Luminous Moon Hall, Yang Chen had clearly shown his disdain for them. Adding Chu Heng's matter to that, the substitute hallmaster, Song Hang, didn't like Yang Chen. It just so happened that Yang Chen currently held the responsibility for outer disciples, but because of Gao Yu's injuries, he had surprisingly left for half a year. In addition to the 4 months he had spent after returning to heal Gao Yu, Yang Chen didn't fulfill his responsibility as the merit-transferring disciple for a whole 10 months. This proved to be a great opportunity for Song Hang to deal with Yang Chen. Previously, because Yang Chen was in the cultivation room, even if he had wanted, Song Hang couldn't order him to come out, therefore he had been waiting for Yang Chen to come out. Not even half a day had passed since Yang Chen came out of the cultivation hall, and Song Hang had urged the palace master and the other hall's masters to set a formal meeting and punish him. Disciple does not know of any crimes. Yang Chen replied, bluntly facing Song Hang. I request Uncle Master Song to give me some pointers. HMPH, the hell you don't. Song Hang coldly snorted, without caring about the frown of the palace master on the other hall masters' faces, he continued. You are the merit-transferring disciple, yet you left without any prior notice, thus you are hampering their growth. Do you still have anything to say? Song Hang clearly knew that the palace master and the other hall masters would not investigate Yang Chen's offenses, but he still raised this accusation. Yang Chen had left the Nine Earth Manor 10 months ago, this was public knowledge, so no one could say anything in support of Yang Chen. On the matter of the second Fierce Yang courtyard, the palace master had openly sided with Yang Chen and suppressed the luminous moon hall, giving them the reason that what he had earned was his. Presently, Song Hang was using the same reason, which made the palace master and the other hall masters speechless and left them with no option except punishing Yang Chen. Sure enough, when Song Hang opened his mouth, the others were completely dumbstruck. No one said half a word in support of Yang Chen. Everyone clearly understood that this matter was based on a past revenge. The palace master had an embarrassed expression on his face. He wanted to help Yang Chen, but Song Hang had stated the sect rules and he could not show any favoritism. So it was clear that this time, he could only wrong Yang Chen. Uncle Master Hong, I want to know which rule of my Pure Yang Palace says that merit transferring disciples for the outer disciples cannot leave the Nine Earth Manor. Yang Chen however remained completely calm. Standing in front of everyone, he bluntly stated. I don't know of any such rule regarding being absent, where is it written? Hearing Yang Chen's point, the palace master had sensed that this matter was definitely not going in the direction which Song Hang had thought. A smile appeared on his face and then he took a seat, waiting for the next development. The minds of the other hallmasters also jolted and they began to listen to the matter attentively. My sect's rules doesn't have such a clause. The medicine hall's hallmaster Zhu Chen Tao was the first one to jump out in Yang Chen's support. And what were you saying? Indeed, we don't have such a clause. Song Hang is being a little inconsistent as sin. Naturally nobody would support Song Hang, so the agreeing voices began to echo one after another. This wasn't something which Yang Chen had made up, instead it was a precedent set by all of the previous merit transferring disciples. Only they hadn't been absent for as long as Yang Chen, at most 1 or 2 days, but regarding this offense of absconding, a day or two compared to a month or two, or a year or two couldn't be differentiated. Since the previous merit transferring disciples could leave the Nine Earth Manor when they wanted, then Yang Chen could also leave when he wanted, so this matter could not be said to be an offense. Yang Chen had cleverly used this point so that Song Hang couldn't say even half a word. Good, absconding is not your fault. Song Hang wasn't discouraged in the least, Yang Chen had left the Nine Earth Manor for 10 months, so the guidance of the outer disciples had definitely been obstructed. That was naturally a sound fact, therefore Song Hang generously let this accusation go. But, you haven't guided them properly and have hampered their growth, what do you have to say about that? Song Hang immediately grabbed the later part of offense. For 10 months you haven't guided the outer disciples, haven't you hampered their growth? At this point, even if the palace master had tried to take the blame, he couldn't do anything. But Yang Chen had previously shown great confidence, which had made the palace master think that Yang Chen surely had something to say. Uncle Master Song, about your words of hampering the progress of my disciples, you don't have the final say in that matter. Yang Chen's voice wasn't very high, but it was clear enough to reach everyone's ears. If I don't have the say, then who does? The palace master? Song Hang sneered. He thought that Yang Chen was like a cornered beast, trying to find every possible method to escape the sin. Then I asked Palace Master, this behavior of Yang Chen, is it regarded as hampering the progress of his disciples? This time, the ball was in the Palace Master's court. He coughed lightly and was about to open his mouth, but surprisingly, before he could open his mouth, Yang Chen had already started speaking. Actually, the Palace Master is also not in charge. Once Yang Chen opened his mouth, he immediately gave everyone a huge scare. In the matters of the Pure Yang Palace, even the Palace Master did not have a say. How outrageous. This clearly was not putting the Palace Master in his eyes. What atrocity. Zhu Chen Tao became anxious and hastily berated Yang Chen, loudly making Song Hang choke on his words. Because Zhu Chen Tao's berating would always be better than Song Hang opening his mouth. Yang Chen, then you tell me, who can check if you have hampered the growth of your disciples? The Palace Master was also slightly angry and asked in a heavy voice. If Yang Chen did not give him a good reason, then he would properly discipline him first. Since you are saying that the growth of disciples have been hampered. Yang Chen gently laughed and calmly spoke. Then naturally the final say must be with those disciples whose development has been hampered. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 160 I know, but I won't tell you. The disciples who have been instructed would have the final say. The Palace Master was startled but immediately realized something and gently laughed. Right, indeed those disciples should have the final say. In matters of cultivation, the person who experienced it personally knew the best. Other people may sense if their cultivation was higher, but they wouldn't know what kind of problems one faced during their cultivation. Whatever method they used, it would not be better than the person's own sensation. It would not be unreasonable to say that the person himself would know if he had made some mistakes or not, but if his cultivation had been continuing smoothly, his spirit power was stable, and his spiritual awareness was rising stably, what kind of problem could there be? What sort of cultivation method could be suitable for everyone, and what sort of cultivation method could also guarantee to be 100% correct? Perhaps a cultivation method which was suitable for someone was wrong for another. Everyone's innate talent was different, and so was their comprehension, and thus they had discrepancies in their cultivation, otherwise, wouldn't everyone be the same? Even the palace master found Yang Chen's words reasonable, not to mention the other hallmasters. As for Song Hang, he didn't have any chance to speak, since even palace master could not pass the judgment here. What about him? Let the instructed disciples have the final say. But Song Hang didn't really approve of this method. Palace master, if these outer disciples are scared of him, then they would not dare to speak the truth, wouldn't he get away with it then? Then can you tell me another way? The palace master seemed to know that the main antagonist for the people of the luminous moon hall was Yang Chen, but not even overlooking such a simple problem was truly excessive. His voice contained a trace of discontentment. Indeed, this disciple has a way. As if he hadn't sensed the discontentment in palace master's voice, Song Hang slowly said. According to Yang Chen, since the outer disciples have the final say in this method, just let them speak. But they must be put under Hallmaster Meng's mind-confusing trick. Under the mind-confusing trick, they will probably not be able to lie. Yang Chen, what do you think? The palace master turned to Yang Chen to ask for his opinion. I agree to palace master's orders. Yang Chen did not care much about this. What he wanted was to have those outer disciples tell the truth. Song Hang feared that Yang Chen would force them by abusing his authority, so he wanted to use the mind-confusing technique, but this was exactly what Yang Chen had been looking for. With this, any kind of trick Song Hang used would just be greatly easy to spot. Good. The palace master immediately declared his decision. So this matter will be conducted according to Song Hang's advice. Since Song Hang is the one who had raised the question, then you should also be the one to select the outer disciples whom you want to call and question them on the spot. Yes, palace master. Song Hang was looking forward to this moment and immediately went out with Meng Xian, the hallmaster of the law enforcement hall, and began to look for suitable disciples to call in for questioning. The palace master and the other hallmasters kept on waiting in the hall and began to inquire about Gao Yu's matter from Yang Chen. They had all seen the condition of Gao Yu's injury, especially medicine hall's hallmaster Zhu Chen Tao. Everyone knew that her spiritual awareness had suffered heavy losses and was constantly dissipating, but they couldn't find a good method to save her. Surprisingly, Yang Chen was able to cure her in only 4 months, which had really caught everyone's attention. Disciple also didn't have any special methods. Since the matter was extremely urgent, without any better option, I was forced to use a pair cultivation method for spiritual awareness, mentioned in some book. Yang Chen didn't tell them the complete truth, but also didn't hide everything. Master's spiritual awareness was dissipating continuously, and in my desperation, I tried this method, which succeeded after countless difficulties. The reason why he had told them about the pair cultivation method was to provide them with a reasonable explanation. Naturally, he had constantly stressed that the affair was extremely urgent, and he was also afraid that this method of pair cultivation wouldn't be accepted by the sect, or there would be many great troubles in the future. But with his reasons, everyone had no other option than accepting it. Other than dying, the only option was the pair cultivation of spiritual awareness. It had to be said that this was not a genuine pair cultivation of joining bodies, and at least there hadn't been any disgraceful actions between master and disciple. Others had no way to investigate this. This method is so effective. The palace master thought of something and asked again. Can it be used in our sect? Other hallmasters were also attentively listening, since they also were very interested in this method. Difficult? Yang Chen immediately shook his head. Some things weren't suitable for others to know, even if they were from the same sect, especially when there were people like Song Hang and Liang Xiaoming in the sect. The procedure of the cultivation method is very complicated, and although it is said to be pair cultivation, this disciple was barely able to restore master's spiritual awareness after major decrease in my own. The spiritual awareness of both master and disciple have fallen by 1 realm. Just master waking up was the silver lining in this great misfortune. Yang Chen had already talked about all of this with Gao Yu properly, and she had agreed not to release the secret of the pair cultivation. With his reasons, everyone also understood that point. If this was really such a good method, then why wasn't it recorded among the cultivation methods, but within a random book? Yang Chen, if Song Hang is able to find someone who has not been able to make anything of himself, wouldn't you be punished? Zhu Chen Tao was worrying for Yang Chen from the start. Seeing that Yang Chen was so nonchalant about the issue, he couldn't help but ask. Zhu Chentao certainly seemed to be asking Yang Chen, but in reality he was reminding everyone on the scene that if a few disciples weren't any good and that influenced Yang Chen's conviction, then there was a problem. No worries. Many thanks for your concern, Uncle Master Zhu. Yang Chen, however, did not appear to be worried about this, as if he had a hidden card up his sleeve. Whomever he finds, it will be the same, there will be no effect on the outcome. Even the palace master was astonished by Yang Chen's confidence and his reply. The sect was quite big and had several hundred outer disciples, so there would always be one or two who had failed to live up to the expectations, so why did Yang Chen have such confidence? No one asked about it, however. In any case, the results would be clear very soon. Everyone tacitly understood this and let this question slide. Switching to his experiences at the Greater Mountains, the special products available there and so on, slowly killing time, waiting for the disciples chosen by Song Hang. After an hour, Song Hang and Meng Xian finally brought 20 disciples to the main hall. All people were chosen by Song Hang, Meng Xian had just followed as a witness and hadn't chosen anyone. However, Meng Xian was resentful that Song Hang had even selected some servants and regarded them as outer disciples. Although, looking at this, Meng Xian had wrinkled his brows, yet he didn't say anything. These servants were also at the Nine Earth Manor and according to the rules, they could also go to the merit transferring disciple for guidance. Yang Chen, this time, I will make you concede your guilt. Song Hang, who had returned in high spirits after choosing the disciples, sneered towards Yang Chen. "Do as you like, Uncle Master." Yang Chen made an inviting gesture without any concern and moved to one side while allowing Song Hang and Meng Xian to take the center stage. The matter of interrogating them was also handed to Song Hang, the person in question himself. Song Hang pointed to a disciple without any politeness and made him come to the center. Afterwards he asked the hallmaster Meng Xian to take the initiative. Since Meng Xian was not only a wielding stage expert but also the hallmaster of the law enforcement hall, Song Hang did not dare to be arrogant and asked him courteously. The mind-confusing technique was a simple hypnosis to puzzle the mind. Under normal circumstances, the person who it was going to be used on would rebel and remain on guard, so it would not be completely successful. This was also the reason why Mo Qian and her disciples hadn't used such a simple technique on Yang Chen. But the target was an outer disciple in the end, a Kai-layer youngster. Meng Xian himself was a wielding stage expert, so the difference between their realms was extremely high. In addition to that, the palace master was instructing all of the disciples to not resist, so Hallmaster Meng Xian barely had to spend any effort on hypnotizing this third Kai-layer disciple. "You, speak truthfully, when Yang Chen was the merit transferring disciple, did he guide you meticulously?" Song Hang, who was completely engrossed in humiliating Yang Chen, he did not even ask for the name of the Kai-layer disciple and directly came to the point. "Yes, Uncle Master Ancestor." Although he had been hypnotized, this Kai-layer disciple still knew the difference between juniors and seniors and only answered after making the proper salutations. "This disciple has received great help from Uncle Master Yang." He focused on the special traits of this disciple's cultivation method and cultivation and explained everything in detail, allowing this disciple to have a sudden enlightenment. Disciple cannot thank him enough. Song Hang couldn't help but become gloomy because he originally wanted to hear an answer that Yang Chen hadn't cleared the doubts of the disciple, but he hadn't anticipated such an answer in favor of Yang Chen. In the beginning, Song Hang had wished to ask who of these disciples had received pointers from Yang Chen and look for those who hadn't. But with Meng Xian on his side, he did not dare to be so brazen and so he thought of a way to show his fairness and took Meng Xian with him at the time of choosing disciples and picked them only by looking at their cultivation and did not ask anything, hoping that these would be the disciples he wanted, but he anticipated such an answer. "What was your cultivation before he guided you and how much has it increased?" Song Hang also couldn't be excessively impudent in front of the palace master and the group of hallmaster, so he continued to ask. "Speak truthfully." Reporting to Ancestor, this disciple is very slow-witted, even after becoming an outer disciple for 2 years, disciple has remained at the first Kai layer. Both eyes of that disciple were blurry, but his reply was clear. After Uncle Master Yang's guidance, disciple had a sudden flash of realization and within less than a year, disciple has already reached the third Kai layer. This disciple's cultivation had been very low, which was the reason why Song Hang had picked him, hoping that he would be able to embarrass Yang Chen, but he hadn't expected the reply to be like this. How could this be called as hampering the development of disciples? Actually, this was the mark of a great master. Even if it was Song Hang himself, he also wouldn't dare to boast that, within a short 10 months, he would be able to make a dim-witted first Kai layer disciple enter the third Kai layer. Perhaps it was possible through the use of pills, but Yang Chen certainly hadn't been at the Nine Earth Manor for 10 months, so it was basically impossible for him to use such a method. I will ask again. When Yang Chen had gone out, how were you able to find the solutions for cultivation problems which you faced during that time? Hearing answers in favor of Yang Chen, Song Hang had no choice but to forcefully steer it towards a direction when Yang Chen wasn't here. Only, he was a Jidant stage hallmaster, the substitute hallmaster of the Luminous Moon Hall, yet he still used such a method to deal with Yang Chen. This really made the other people there to look down on him. There were no such problems. This disciple bluntly killed Song Hang's efforts in its early stages. The pointers that Uncle Master Yang gave were extremely detailed. They included what problems disciple would face at what times and how to solve them. They have all been explained to this disciple, and this disciple only had to follow the orders. Until this day, this disciple did not face any problems outside of what Uncle Master Yang has said, so within 2 years, disciple has no need to go to Uncle Master Yang for guidance. Bang. The last words of this disciple were like a clap of thunder and made the palace master and the other hallmasters feel the utmost shock. What did he mean by that? Every problem within his cultivation was within the range of Yang Chen's explanation, and he just had to verify it. He didn't need any guidance for 2 years. What level of teaching was this? Even if it was the palace master, he also didn't dare to assure that he could have done better than Yang Chen. Song Hang was completely embarrassed, but he didn't call this reply in doubt. This disciple was under the effect of the mind-confusing technique of Meng Xian, so he could not lie. But this was certainly not the answer which Song Hang had desired. Perhaps this disciple had been cheated by Yang Chen. Song Hang was unwilling to give up and immediately switched him with another disciple and asked a similar set of questions. What was astonishing for them was that this disciple's reply was precisely the same as the previous one. Yang Chen's guidance was incomparably thorough, and he also didn't need any guidance for 1 or 2 years. He only had to follow the orders and cultivate, that would suffice. Even after asking 10 disciples, there wasn't anyone who had not received guidance. All of them gave almost the same answer. Song Hang, who still wasn't willing to give up, also asked a few servants whom he had brought, but what made him give up all hopes was that even these servants had received pointers from Yang Chen, and their cultivations had also increased. How was this condemning him? This was clearly just applying makeup to his face. Moreover, in front of the palace master, it was like asking for an award for Yang Chen. How can this be possible? Unwillingness was spread across Song Hang's entire face, but with incomparable astonishment he said. How can you be proficient in all of those cultivation methods and even understand all of the problems within the cultivation methods? Why is this so impossible? Yang Chen smiled. If Uncle Master Song remembered the entire hidden pavilion, then you can also have a similar level of achievement. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Song Hang madly shouted. You have certainly cast a hypnosis on these disciples of the Nine Earth Manor, true or not? True or not? Once the palace master and the others heard this, their complexions were immediately changed. This was clearly just causing trouble without purpose. Uncle Master Song cultivates the heavenly chaste water secrets, right? Yang Chen suddenly smiled. Your cultivation is already at the peak Jidant stage, but recently it has been getting harder to circulate spirit power, and then after circulating you feel an acute pain in your shoulders, and you also have a sensation of being pricked by needles in your lower back. Well, your cultivation hasn't improved even a bit and you haven't been able to find a solution. You also feel that your flying sword isn't moving as strongly as you wish. And you haven't felt the signs of forming a nascent soul for a long time. How do you know this? Song Hang was startled and asked with great alarm, then his complexion turned cheerful. Do you know how to solve it? Since I know the symptoms, naturally I also know how to solve it. Yang Chen laughed and gave a ridiculing look to Song Hang. How can this be solved then? Song Hang impatiently asked. Although I know the method. Yang Chen calmly asked. Why should I tell you? If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more.